Hey, welcome back to Spilled Ink, Comics Wellspring's live drawing show, where I bring on creators to teach me, your host, Brandon Blocksdorf, how to draw. And with us today, we have, of course, our amazing co-host, Max Flowers, joining us. Hello, Max.
Hello.
And we have an amazing, awesome guest with us, Mr. Jimmy Reyes, legendary inker. Jimmy, thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you, man. Now Oh my God, I'm gonna choke because you called me legendary. Now I'm gonna choke, and people are gonna go, "Oh my God, this guy was a professional inker."
all the
Is
all
that
the
all it
technical
takes?
issues start happening right when we
Yeah.
say it. Yeah. Dude, you've done so much in your career, and you also create your own books independently, which is how we all became connected. Like you ink a lot of David Finch's work, which is super
Yeah.
awesome. Where I think most people may recognize your name, but tell us really quick about your independent series that you print through Comics Wellspring too.
Yeah. I actually started in 2019. I decided that. That was during the time where pencils were down. Mainstream was telling us, there was no more work. So I had to find something, some way, because that was what I was doing to pay bills. And it was pretty scary. So I went over and I saw that there were people doing crowdfunding, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Let's see what that's all about. And I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, hey, man, I got this idea about this girl and this dragon, and I love fantasy, and I'd like to do something. If you're interested. And he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to. And he got on with me, and then I crowdfunded the book. It was successful. I only ran it for like 30 days. It did really well. We didn't do in demand on Indiegogo or anything. Did great. And then we sent
Great.
it off. This is Dragon Rage. And we sent it off to Comics Wellspring, and you guys did just fantastic job.
Awesome. That's cool to hear, dude. I love hearing that because it shows like the range of like professional creators out there still making their own stuff. And I love seeing independent work from like, creators like you who are, you're busy with other stuff, but going back and just letting yourself out and kind of was this a challenge for you to make, going from pencils to everything to do it?
Yeah, because when I worked in the industry, I broke in 1994 after only learning to draw 1 year before that. I grew up in a
Damn.
very poor neighborhood. All I ever had were like crayons and coloring book. Like that was as far as what I ever had as far as art. So I never got comic books. I didn't know, there was anything like that out there. I didn't know I could draw. I was about 18 years old when I decided that I was going to start drawing. And I discovered comic books, and I started drawing. So when I was going to leave the mainstream, because there was a lot going on in the mainstream for me. I mean, it wasn't just pencils down during the the quarantine and all that. There was the disrespect that I got from editors. Editors just they didn't understand. It felt like they didn't understand the role of an inker, and I felt that they were treating me, not every editor, but most my editors were treating me as if I was expendable,
Mm.
and they
Oh,
were constantly reminding me of that. And
Yeesh.
yeah, it's like I think they didn't really understand, what an inker really could do, how
yeah.
an inker could either make or break an artist's work.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
honestly, yeah.
yeah,
Across the board. Bad inking is a lot like, the more you kind of notice comics and understand comics, you start noticing like the defects in comics sometimes. Like you could tell a book's, presence. It might have a good story, but bad coloring will turn it off. It might have good art, but bad inking will turn it off. It might have a good
yeah,
story and good art, but bad lettering will just turn it all off.
oh yeah,
Like there's levels that are every
or
aspect of
bad
it is so
printing,
important.
poor
Bad
quality
printing.
printing. Yeah,
Yeah, to everything matters when it comes because it's so collaborative and so many pieces of the puzzle need to align for, a good art piece. And it all has variations in styles, but all of them contribute heavily to, making it legible, making it readable, enjoyable, timeless. Like there's a reason why some books top others, and it's because of that type of quality and attention to detail.
and it's definitely a learning experience. I don't expect new creators to know it all,
Mm-hmm.
to come in. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'd been in the industry long enough that I'd been around independent creators. I started with the independents. I started with a small company called Antarctic Press, and they were the first ones to give me work back in
Nice.
1994. And then eventually, kind of worked my way through other independents before getting into the mainstream. But being around creators like that, I learned a whole lot. I learned a lot of the lingo and what to do. And even though I was working in comics, I had a young family and a mortgage. So I needed benefits, because
Mhm.
when you come into comics, there's really no benefits and there's no retirement plan. There's no 401k, I mean, you got to buy your own 401k,
Yeah.
and so for me, I mean, unless you can get an exclusive contract, become an employee for one of these big companies, which is very rare. It's
Yeah.
pretty
Very
hard to
rare.
do for an inker. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Oh, I could even imagine that, they try to lock in some of these other, like, writers and whatnot, but some
Yeah,
of the core people, I feel like they kinda just like it's all freelance, it's all contract work to them sometimes.
yeah. Especially when it's guys like myself being an inker or colorist and stuff like that. We don't get any of that stuff. We're expendable in their eyes, but so I've been around those creators and learned a whole lot. And I also worked as a graphic designer to get benefits and to have, a 401k. And so I was a graphic designer and a comic book inker at the same time. So,
Oh,
and
wow.
raising a family. So my days were busy.
Yeah, nonstop, I can imagine. Dude,
Yeah.
that's wow, this is great work too that we're
Oh,
checking in
thank
right here.
you. I've learned a lot.
Wow.
I've had the pleasure to be the experience of hanging out with a lot of artists, becoming friends with a lot of different artists out there. Brett Booth, really nice
Yeah,
guy.
awesome,
I've
amazing artist.
Yeah, I've known Brett for a while, and I've gotten to meet tons of people, my peers out there. Sandra Hope is really great, and all these people, and as I was going, eventually I started to meet more people, and eventually guys like Dave Finch took me under his wing, taught me a whole lot, and it wasn't until when I was going to go and design my own book
Mhm.
that when I did my own book, and you guys printed the first one. It wasn't until it was at that point that Ethan Van Sciver allowed me on his platform, on his channel, and that's just a huge audience,
Oh, I bet,
you
yeah.
know. And so when I'm there, I get to meet this huge, community of just, fans and creators, and so I'm around just so much talent, there. I mean, Ethan's got 30 years experience. Del Keown is there, and one of the guys I looked up to so much, Art T Bear. He inked Jim Lee, and
Yeah.
I'm friends with Art, and it's crazy. It blows my mind that now I'm these guys are my peers, people that I looked up to at one point.
That's so odd. I mean, that's goals to the central part is just like making comics with all your friends, like being in a
Yeah.
room with people you look up to, people that, have inspired you and people that you're just like, how are we're hanging out, we're doing this, and now we're doing what we love together. Like it's one of the best feelings in the world hanging out with,
It,
of course,
it, it
everybody.
is to be around other people that get what you're doing, that are passionate about what you're doing, that love the medium, love the characters, love the storytelling, and they get it. They've grown up with it. They've been there, and I love it. I feed off that energy with them, and I thought that was your microphone for a second. I was
Every
like,
single time
whoa,
makes an appearance once I start drawing. Yep.
yes, I got to show the cattail.
Always.
Yeah, and so it's an open community. They were very welcoming, and it's so great because anybody could be part of it, and they help me out. Whenever I have questions like, hey, where did you guys go to get this this custom box made, or where'd you guys go for posters, and everybody's so willing to help, and I'd highly recommend it for newcomers. Man, coming out there is to just be around other creators that love what you're doing, and hopefully they've got more experience than you, and you can lean on them.
Yeah. It's all learning lessons and exchanging. I think that's what's so great about like the shows that we produce here at Comics Wellspring is that it's all of us doing exactly that, like inspiring each other, showing each other tips of the trade, like, giving experience, insight. That's what it's all about. Like not holding any secrets, like seeing how
Yeah.
we can help each other grow too, which I mean, this piece you gave us too tonight, that's going to help all of us grow a little bit. I feel this is
Oh,
a
for sure.
wild, awesome.
uh,
What can you tell us about the piece we're going to be
yeah,
inking up today?
yeah. Let me share that screen again, and this way viewers can see that the piece here, and it's actually a splash page from my book Dragon Rage. So what I did was I just added a dragon kind of peeking over in the back just to kind of make it look a little bit like we're kind of inking a cover, but it's actually a page from the book Dragon Rage. So it's the type of level of quality. I know that doesn't sound humble, but it didn't
No,
sound humble
this
at
is
all, right?
no, it's a complicated piece. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, we took one look at it, and I grow from like metal roots because of my dad and everything, so I'm hyped, and Max over here is into a lot of black metal and cool stuff, so we're totally vibing it, and it took a look, and I was like a little intimidated, and I was like, how are we gonna do
Oh,
this? Like, this is gonna be, I haven't inked anything this crazy before, this intricate, this fine
yeah.
lined before. I think that's the thing
Wow.
about it, the line
Yeah.
work in it.
And the hatching, dude. The hatching on this is immaculate. Um, I'm excited.
Wow.
I don't usually draw in the like more realistic, fantastical, almost like Frazetta-ish style very often.
Wow. You said
So
Frazetta. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's the first thought. The
That's
first thought that came
awesome.
up to it.
for sure,
Wow.
dude.
Yeah.
No,
No,
very much so.
thank you. I'm nowhere near Frazetta, but I appreciate I
I
appreciate the
don't think
compliment.
I don't think anybody can touch Frazetta. He was one of a
Yeah,
kind, but
no.
Yeah.
but it gives the same vibe and energy. Random question: what were you doing for Antarctic when you
Um,
were first started?
yeah, when I first started, I met Ben Dunn. He offered me a cover, and I did the Guyver. They were publishing a book called Sentai, and the Guyver's part of Sentai, which are like kind of like Power Rangers and that genre. And he offered me a cover for Sentai number 4, and it was of the Guyver. And I had never read any comics. I saw, I think the only other comic I had seen at that point was John Buscema Wolverine. A buddy of mine had let me borrow his comic book, and I was drawing from it. And I'd only been drawing for about a year. And so Ben says, "Hey, would you do a cover for us? And would you do a cover of the Guyver?" I said, "Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Does it pay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll pay you for it. And then I'll do it." Because I was young, and I needed a
Yeah.
job. And I was at that point, I had started drawing when I was 18. I was 19 years old and about to be a father.
Oh, whoa.
And I needed, I have these responsibilities ahead of me. So I needed a job. And so I go back, and I had no idea what the Guyver was, at all. I faked it. I didn't know what it was. So I stopped at a local comic store, and I tried to go in and ask the kids in there. I say kids, they're probably they're probably 50 years old now, like me. But I go, at the time I was, I was young, and I go in there and I asked the kids, that were behind the counter. I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a comic book called the Guyver." And they laughed and laughed and laughed so hard. And their laugh was so ridiculous that I thought they were faking the laugh and making fun of me. That's how I felt. Like
Yeah,
it
naturally.
was so bad. They're behind the counter laughing at that. I mean, I had the nerdiest kids laughing at me, and I mean this respectfully. I know, but and I'll tell you guys why. But I'm just describing what they were. They were the nerdiest kids, and they
Yeah.
just like that was their real laugh, and it was the weirdest laugh. Like I couldn't tell what was going on. And I said, "Do you guys carry that comic book?" And I remember this day that kid looked at me with attitude, and he said to me, "It's called Bio Booster Guyver, and it's a manga." But he didn't pronounce it manga. He pronounced it like
Yeah.
manga or something. Like he was trying to do like a real like Japanese kind of pronunciation to me. And I go, "That comic book, I want that one." And they laughed again real hard. And I'm in there with my wife. We're both young at the time, and we're teenagers. And so he walks us to where the mangas are, and he hands me a big manga, and I'm like, "Oh, it's different than what I expect. It's big." I paid, I think at the time back then, the manga was about $14.
Oh, whoa.
I got paid for that cover I drew for Antarctic Press of the Guyver. I got paid $50.
Whoa.
Yee.
So it cost me money to, to get it all done.
Mhm.
But I got the reference I needed. I did the cover. I took it back, and Ben Dunn said he loved it, and they offered me more work from that point.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and but they as it was there, they hired a new guy at the time. He was doing a book, and he asked me. The guy said, "Hey, I know you're drawing, but I don't have an inker. We don't have inkers. I see that you can ink your own work. Would you mind inking for me?" And I took the red pill, man, and I
Love it.
I
That's a
ended up in the
great
Matrix.
phrase. Yeah.
That's sick, dude. That's so cool, man. That's what a story. I mean, it's crazy. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, your upbringing and everything too, like, and how you found so much success later in your life. Like, that's such a cool thing to hear, and it's something that you're passionate about, and what you're. I mean, dude. I mean, what you're pumping out is extraordinary. Like we're
Wow.
saying,
Thank you.
this is just a lot of. It's fun seeing your whole transition throughout your life.
Well,
Um,
if there's anything any young creators or independent creators can take from my journey is that, I would say, believe in yourself and never give up, because I decided to be an inker because I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could be a penciler. I always looked at my work and I hated it. I was just I looked at my work and went, it's awful. I was comparing myself to Jim Lee at the time, and I mean, come on, Jim Lee had been around drawing for like, 15 years before
yeah,
before
yeah.
me.
I mean, I had that same intimidation. I mean, that's why we made the show, is so that I could learn how to draw and I could build skill sets, because my whole life I had been intimidated because all
Wow.
I grew
Yeah.
up around was like these, DC Marvel books that I would, try to imitate, or, try to draw a Spawn, and it didn't look like Todd. And I'm just like, I'm never going to get there. Like, it just seemed impossible. But then you get so involved with these people, you realize how, you just got to put the work in. You just got to put the time in. And
Yeah, there's no way around it. There's no shortcut. I do a lot of YouTube tutorial videos on my channel, and I teach people. I share what I know. Like you said earlier, you've got your group of people that are new creators, and you started this channel to share everything. And
Mhm.
I do the same thing. I know we're in a competitive industry, but I'm not really. I don't feel competitive. I love to share. And
Yeah.
so I show people what I've learned. But the only thing is, the only thing I don't think that comes across in the videos is that people are expecting to watch a 10-minute video and to be able to achieve what took me 30 years
Yeah.
over a 10-minute
Exactly.
video course.
It's that 10-minute video 10,000 times. That's like starts to build an equivalent to an extent.
Yeah, and really what it was, I was really scared. I didn't want to put the time in because I didn't want to make mistakes. I wanted
Mhm.
every drawing to be perfect, but there's no way to get to a good drawing without going through a bunch of just crappy drawings. There's no way around it.
Yep.
And I know that there's a young generation today that, we're living in a world where you watch short videos on YouTube, you watch TikTok, we get instant gratification. You don't. When
Yep.
I was growing up, you had to wait a week to see the next episode of the X-Men cartoon, and things, and now you or anime TV shows, and now you can binge seasons worth,
Yep.
and you don't have to
Mhm.
wait, and so that's the thing I think is that a lot of artists today, my advice would be to be patient with yourself, believe in yourself. You're gonna get there. If a guy like me who had no formal training, can get to the point where I can get work. I'm not saying I'm the best artist, but I think I can compete with many other artists out there.
Mhm.
And the other thing too is to be appreciative. I think because there's a lot of videos online, and people take it for granted. Be appreciative that there are guys out there willing to share what they've learned.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I love that. I mean, speaking of which, I mean, I noticed right away. So I was like, seeing what you're doing in the background here, and I never switch my pencils if I mock over them to blue line. I really, and I did that right now. I've kind of messed with the hue and saturation, to kind of make this, ain't black drawing blue line. How rad? Why does that benefit you a little bit?
Well, back in the day when when I used to ink traditionally, you could ink over non-photo blue because whenever the artwork was reproduced, the blue wouldn't reproduce. It wouldn't photograph. It would use stat machines and all this times the way printers were used back then. Today, the reason that we're using it now in digital is that we want to be able to see the clean line that we've put down and be able to differentiate the rough gesture lines that are underneath in the drawing, because every line in the drawing in the pencil is important. All the construction lines, all the blocking that the penciler did. In this case, it was me, but whenever you're inking over a penciler, they've got to block in the artwork. They've got gesture lines, lines of beauty, action lines. They got just great stuff in there. And as an inker, when you're going in and do the finish work, you want to be able to differentiate between what line is going to be the final line that's going to remain over, and you want to still be able to see all those beautiful line work, without, would be able to tell the difference between the two. But when I was inking traditionally, this is what I would see. It would be like this. So you really couldn't see the line you were putting down. You had to be very confident in your line work and know that the line that you threw down, that it's going to be the
That was
good
it.
line.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to see it until you erased. Like I mean, like I would have to then like erase around it, to be able to see that line, make it clean. And but with digital, man, there's so many advances and so much advantage to being digital. People ask me all the time, like, Jimmy, why did you leave traditional? Why go digital? Digital's horrible. Um, and I said to people, I said, well, I got those comments, but my goal was I'm going to do digital in such a way that nobody can tell it's digital, and
Nice.
I
Yeah.
achieved that. I inked a cover. I convinced Dave Finch, and I said, "Hey, let me ink you digital," because he was also like, "I don't know why I'd want to go digital," and
Mm.
and of course for him, there's reasons why. But I said, let's do something. We're gonna do there was a new property at the time. Kyle Higgins was doing a book called Radiant Black,
Oh, nice.
and it wasn't. Nobody knew what it was. It was issue number one. We didn't know it was gonna be successful. So I said, hey, that's a new property. We probably won't even sell the original to it. I don't know if people are going to want to buy it. So let me ink that digital, and I don't care about owning an original. And Dave said, yeah. So I inked it digital. The book came out. The cover came out. Got printed. Nobody knew it was digital.
Oh,
People,
wow.
yeah, people
That's sick.
couldn't. People couldn't tell. So I get. I used to get people all the time that would say to me, oh, I can tell the difference. And now people don't say that anymore to me because I don't think they can. When other than they know I'm doing digital, but they can't tell when I go back and forth.
That's cool. What effects do you use when you're inking to make it feel so, or is it just like the style of the stroke that you're running with?
Well, I use a program called Clip Studio Paint, and Clip Studio Paint was specifically designed for the creation of comic books in Japan, which are mangas, and a lot of the mangaka, are the artists in Japan are using this program, specifically for comic books. So it's not like Photoshop, which was originally designed to manipulate photographs, and now they're trying to make Photoshop into be able to do more things. And Adobe, Illustrator's vector base, it was originally designed to create artwork that can be scaled, and it wasn't really designed specifically for comics, but Clip Studio Paint is. And with Clip Studio Paint, it allows me to customize brushes, build my own brushes.
Nice.
So when I came in and I was looking at what everybody was doing inside Clip Studio Paint, I understood why my peers, the professionals, why they were all going, nah, we're not going digital. It's because people were creating pattern brushes. They were looking for shortcuts. It was a lot of people who didn't know how to ink, wanting to be able to ink their own work and fake it. But if I was going to come in and switch to digital as a professional inker, for one, I mean, my peers would eat me up. They would make fun of me if it didn't look like the quality that I could do traditionally. Because
Mm.
that's how well I am with my friends, my peers. They feel comfortable enough to haze me. All the
That's
time.
awesome though. Yeah, you got to have that sometimes, you know? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
encouragement too. So,
Yeah, sometimes I get encouragement from them.
yeah.
If
So how long did it take you to figure out your process digitally and nail down all your brushes so that it felt right? Because so for reference, I'm I'm 23 and I, you know, played around digitally. I learned a lot digitally from the get go. But now I only do traditional because I want to get good and figure out traditionally how I work. Then I can transfer that process over to a digital process. So, how long did it take you to get used to doing things digitally and still make it look right?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're doing that. Glad to hear that you're doing that because that's how I was able to go into digital and then elevate the digital inking process for comic books. Was that I had 30 years under my belt of traditional inking with learning to master tools like a crow quill or a Klinsky sable brush,
Sick.
and it wasn't trying to learn how to ink with digital tools. So I had already developed my eye and muscle memory. So when I decided that I was going to go digital, for the first I think the first month, I hated it. I wanted to give up. I was so angry at the fact that I went out and bought at the time, a $400 Cintiq. I had this small little Cintiq at the time, and I was so angry at myself. I thought I wasted money, and uh, and then at the time I was inking Dave Finch, and when I decided that I was going to go digital, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm not going. I won't be. You won't be inking me digital. And I was going to be losing a good. I'm not only work over a good friend, and I was so angry. But what I did was I decided that I was going to put away all my traditional tools. I was not going to allow myself to be able to ink anything. I was going to force myself to do digital. So here's the scary answer to your question: is it honestly it took me about maybe 2 years to get to the
Wow.
point where before I was really comfortable and bold enough to go, all right, Dave, I'm going to ink you digital, and I bet you anything you're not going to be able to even tell the difference. So
It's crazy.
yeah,
That
it's a
is
long
crazy.
yeah, it's a long process, but I didn't
But
have the
still worth it.
tools.
Like,
Oh
that
yeah,
makes sense though, you know what I mean? Like, that's kinda what I do too. I got an iPad thinking I'm gonna get an iPad, I'm gonna learn how to draw, and then I started with it, and it just didn't ever feel right. It just didn't feel
yeah,
comfortable, so I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go traditional and see how I do that," and I try to do everything I do traditional right now because and then I'll go and even go back, like the zine I just put out, I went and all the drawings in there I scanned because they were all done traditionally, and then I redid a lot of them digitally just so I could get a comparison to see how I feel inking them on my iPad and getting some exposure to it and trying to I've been trying to find a balance between the two, but I really try to focus traditionally first and then lean into digital because it's a lot of fun, especially when you're traveling and everything. You just get to get work done as well.
there's really honestly traditional. I love it. I love the feeling of traditional. I will always love traditional. But I also like the benefits that I get from digital. So I'm kind of torn in between. And the big argument that I get from people right away will go, well, I'm not going to go digital because then I don't have an original. And
Mhm.
I hate to burst the bubble of young creators, but I always ask, well, how often do you sell your original art? Because original art's a very niche market. A lot of people think, well, when I become pro, I'm going to be selling originals and left and right. Honestly, it's a niche market, and there's only two things that sell the comic book original art, and the main thing that sells original comic art is the character.
Mhm.
So if you're not working on, Batman or Spider Man or none of the mans, then you may have a harder time selling your original art, and that's because people, they really buy for the character. So
Yeah,
if
honestly.
you're not working on those titles, why not use the benefits of digital to help speed things up for you to meet deadlines, because deadlines are really important.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, build your speed with it like that. And that's not to say to stop doing your traditional. It's like, figure out what's best for you and your working capabilities and what you're trying to do with your career too.
Yeah, that's absolutely that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah, because for me, I'm way faster traditionally than I am digitally. Um, and that's just because it's what I'm comfortable with, and because to get the quality that I'm looking for out of digital takes me so much longer because I'm not doing it as much, right? So like to me, meeting a deadline, I just would do it traditionally because I I can do it so much faster. But I think that ultimately over time, I don't know, right? Like especially on interiors, because interior, getting a page out, getting 20 pages out in a month, that's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got a whole parallel bar set up and using an Ames lettering guide to do hand lettering and all sorts of stuff. It takes
Wow.
forever, and that's not even to include coloring and um, stuff after the fact, all the post press stuff. Um, it's
Are you coloring by hand or like doing like
no, I
acrylic?
so I do color digitally because that's way faster and more flexible than traditional coloring.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, it's definitely you got that learning curve. So if you're the learning curve, it's going to slow you down. But once you pick up digital, I mean, there are so many advantages to digital, and one is that it'll also help you. It does help you with your art. It's not going to do the art and the work for you, but digital will allow you to be to take more risks in your artwork. Because you can undo. You can try something without destroying the art, or you can do a save as or an extra layer on top and try something different with your artwork. So it's a good way to experiment and to train your creative eye, without the dangers of destroying your work.
For sure. I do all my studies digitally, interestingly enough. Well, not all of them, but when I'm studying anatomy or doing master copies or just, copying photographs that I think are interesting, I do all that digitally. But for some reason whenever I'm doing final stuff, I always go traditional. So, I don't know. I really like digital painting though. Um
Yeah, you're messing with that for a bit, huh?
yeah, and I still am, but
Well, the thing too. I mean, I'm not like I'm trying to convert you, but I kind of am. But the the thing for me was that at the beginning it was a struggle, and it was definitely the time that it took to learn digital. But once I have digital down, it speeds up my process. It's so fast. I can spot black, fill in the black areas really fast, really quick. Where when I was traditional, I had to use holding lines to do it,
yep.
and then fill in the black, and it was just much more time consuming. So there's little things in there like that would speed me up in there, and those are some of the advantages that I'm referring to. But yeah, if you're anytime you're learning a new application, a new technique, you got that learning curve in that
I
time.
mean, it's also like for me, it got real intimidating trying to jump into digital right away. I guess it's the same thing with coloring. Like you have so much at your disposal, and choosing what to like start with sometimes as a beginner is really intimidating. So seeing all the brushes, seeing like all your options all in front of you, it's like, whoa, what do I even start with? It's like
Yeah.
having a box of crayons where it's the 200 something color set, and you're like, I just want a
Yeah.
blue, but which
Yeah.
blue now? Like, what's the right blue for this?
Yeah, when I was deciding to go digital, there were no
Yep.
professional tools out there specifically for inking comics. There was a G pen that they were using for mangas and stuff like
Mm,
that. And I went, well, where's the crow quill? And then I would look online, and people would have 1,000 brush set, and in there would be
yeah.
a crow quill. So I'd pay all this money
For
to
the one
buy
tool.
for the one tool, yeah. And then just to find out, they had no idea what a crow quill was supposed to
Oh,
do, you know. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
isn't a crow quill. What? Who's who said? Who told this is a crow quill? So one of the things for me was I started hanging out with the manga artist. I started hanging out with anybody who knew Clip Studio and that could teach me how to start making my own brushes
oh, sick.
because I knew that I the technology was there, but there was nobody with the experience, what these tools are supposed to do, traditionally. So how are they going to create a digital version of this tool if they've didn't know how to use it traditionally?
That's like the most punk rock thing ever. Is just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make my own brush and it's gonna be my style, and none of these are gonna work. I love that. That's so rad.
Yeah, so how long did it take you to make this brush? Because that's one of the things that holds me back is, I get all these brushes and I'm like, this one's good enough, right? Like I can use this one, but it doesn't feel the same as the traditional nib that I use, and it doesn't have those same effects, and I can't treat it the same way.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to replicate those tools in a way that felt comfortable for your hand?
Well, I started creating my brushes in 2018, and I'm still tweaking them till this day. So they're not exactly 100%. Traditional. Digital is never going to be traditional, but you can get it to mimic pretty close. It's always going to have a different feel to it because digital works with pin pressure, and it works. It's a different technology. So I've been designing my brushes, keeping in mind that everybody throws their line different. Everybody has a different weight on their hand. Some people are heavy-handed. Some people light-handed. Some people pull their lines. Some people throw their lines. And that just means some people like to do the gesture out and away from their body, or some like to pull a line into their body.
Hmm.
So I designed my brushes that they can be customizable to each individual. So, and I even provide a video and I show people how to do it and how to customize it. And I created a brush set where I go, all right, this is all you need to get started creating inking comic books. If you want to make it look traditional, especially with the very sleek lines of the 90s, the
Oh yeah.
1990s, this is all you need. You don't need 1,000 brushes. I just simplified it for everybody, and that seems to be working and helping people.
Now working
Yeah.
digitally, this is the big like thing too. Like how often do you use the undo button type of thing? You know, and I hear that as a challenge a lot. Where like, oh, I mean, you're doing it digital. I mean, you rely a lot on the undo. Like, what's a counter towards that? I mean, I could think of a couple for sure, but
Oh, it's the same challenge as okay, well, draw without your eraser because
yeah,
that's a really good exercise. Not
yeah,
to do it every time you draw because then what's the point of the eraser?
true, yeah,
But a really good advice is to just draw without your eraser, and you'll find that you'll one you'll speed up faster. Two, you have better gesture lines, construction lines underneath.
nice,
Because when we first start out, we are thinking that oh, we want to go into the final drawing as quick as we can. We want it to instantly look like the final drawing, but you can't. You can't just start putting frosting on a cake pan. You got to start with the ingredients. You got to start building that cake.
hmm,
So it's the same thing when you're working. You got to start with those construction lines underneath and putting away that eraser or no undo. That's really going to help you a whole lot. So I think it's a good exercise.
that's cool. Yeah, no, that totally, yeah, that's a good challenge to take on for sure. It's a good,
One thing to test too is rebind your undo key. So everybody's got it to Control Z, but if you change it to something really weird, then you'll find yourself undoing less. You know,
oh,
um, but you still have the option to, right? But you have to be very conscious about, okay, now I'm undoing this line.
yeah, not
Um,
Oh,
just like mindlessly tapping that option on the side.
that
Hmm.
that's
right.
pretty that's pretty good. I mean, changing the hotkey on it or your shortcut key command will make you more aware because you have to think about,
To
oh,
solve,
okay, it's no longer Command Z. It's now,
It's
you
a
know, it's
solve a
Command
math
F or
equation.
something. Yeah, yeah, this is totally something
I
different,
gotta
and
do long algebra to undo this stroke.
I know you're like,
Never
"Ah, I'll
gonna.
just draw over
Yeah,
it.
just live with the mistakes.
Because a lot of the guys that that I've learned from, like Dave and Mark Silvestri always says, said stuff like, draw big to small and to always block in your shapes,
Oh,
and
nice.
all of that is so important throughout the entire process of your drawing. So if you're not worried about doing all these clean lines at the beginning, you're just kind of just keep going. It'll keep the energy flowing. You'll work faster, and those lines that you're putting down throughout your drawing, when you go to the inking process, those lines are so key, so important, because inking isn't just slap ink over the drawing. It's to finish the art, and you need those shapes and forms that are in the pencil work, because you have to emphasize them when you're
Oh yeah.
inking. You have to know when and what lines to help enhance to keep the right form and shape. Otherwise, you flatten out the artwork or you diminish the art, and you don't want to make the art go backwards, where a penciler spent hours and hours, and then you're making the art take steps back, and making it look worse. You don't want that.
That's true. That's awesome. So
Yeah, the way I transfer that is like I try and do a lot of the flat blacks first, and I'll do details along the way, but I try and get all those black shapes in so I know what I'm looking at, and then I can just add the rendering and detail in on top of that.
yeah, that was gonna be my question. Like, why'd you decide to start with the shoulder up here?
Oh, a couple of things. One is, it's muscle memory. So the advantage in digital is that the tool's always going to work. It's always going to be 100%. When you're traditional, you've got to test your tools, test the quill, test the ink, the paper. Digital, it's always 100%. It's always going to work, but it's still muscle memory. So you still have to loosen up the shoulders, and I ink mostly with my elbow. So I've got to get that working. So I thought I'd start somewhere wasn't too obvious. Usually the face is kind of where the eye is drawn to, so I'll work on that after I get in rhythm.
Yeah.
So the short answer is, I'd start somewhere where I'm a little more confident until I get in rhythm,
That's
and and sometimes it's just I want to ink cool little shapes that I see in certain parts of the drawing. I go,
mhm.
oh, I can do these little zigzag shapes in here because
Yeah,
that's
actually, I started with the that actually that same hand, but I started with like the forearm and
oh
went into
yeah.
the hand just because I just felt like getting the strokes to kind of what you're saying, warm up a little bit, get the feel of the what I'm doing, and also I haven't used my iPad to ink or do anything in so long. It's getting that vibe of the screen and the pencil right now, and it's yeah, finding the spot you're comfortable with to kind of execute and use as a warm up too.
Yeah, it's also, if you're inking an artist for the first time, you've got to start to get in rhythm with that artist. Because
Hmm.
as an inker, your goal is to harmonize with that penciler. You want to get in rhythm with that penciler. And it takes a little while. So if you can start somewhere where you're a little more confident until you start to figure out what that penciler was trying to achieve in their work, then you can sync up with them, because that's the thing. The
Yeah,
goal is, yeah.
that's what
I
I was
mean,
noticing is like when some of the shapes on here, right? Like I'm like trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, is this hair going into the wing? Is this wing going into the hair? Where does the black just flow in on both? Um, Trying to read what you had in mind in the pencils
Yeah.
in places that aren't so tight, you know?
yeah, because we're two different artists, and two different styles and stuff, and that happens when on anybody, whenever you get another artist to work over your work. And so you're trying to to figure out, well, what did the artist intend, and then you're also trying to use your artist eye to help enhance. So even though they may have used one style of rendering, sometimes you go, oh, I could use cross hatching here, or I could use solid black here, or a halo, or there's different tools in your arsenal that you could use to help separate all the elements, to separate the shoulder from the wings, things like that.
Yeah, that's what's fun about it. It's kind of you get like a chance to put your style and your vibe onto it. What like drew you into like, just inking is such one of those things where it's like a specific part of comic book craft. Like there's an essence about it where you add a flavor, you add your tone. Like what's like the real defining thing about inking that you just adore?
Oh man, line work. I I think people take it for granted. They don't realize that a drawing is just a series of lines to create the illusion of an image. And I think people take it for granted, don't realize like you could have fun mixing up your lines to really make that illustration interesting, visually stimulating. As far as the line work, I mean, the drawing itself, it has to have energy. You got to have anatomy, proportions, and all these things to it. But there's still another level that you can really help just to put the cherry on top.
Hmm.
And
That's
I
awesome.
always push myself to do things just differently. I don't want to. I don't really get. I mean I get the fact that I was like every teenager. If you've ever seen, if you ever, we live by a high school, right? We live by the school, and every time we drive by, I always tell my wife, is it me, or do all these kids look exactly the same?
Yeah.
Like, why do they all have the same haircut? They're all wearing pajamas to school.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get this trend, but there's trends, and there's trends in art, and I don't want to. Trends get dated. They make your work look dated. They won't look timeless. So I try to break from trends, and I'm saying that, and I draw like Dave Finch, but I don't think that was a. I don't think it was really the trend. I think Jim Lee was more the trend, but I try to do different things in my line work than what you see everyone else doing.
So when we look at like a David Finch piece and whatnot, like it's all completed and yeah, it always says like, Finch is the credit, but you're like the inker behind him, a good chunk of the time. Like how do you bring your flavor to like pencils like that? How do you like stand out against a creator that has his own defining style that's so familiar?
Oh man. Well, I mean, really, you want to do good work, and you want to do your work on time. That's really what Dave's really looking for. He's really looking for somebody. I think that gets his style, what he's doing, but he also wants somebody he can count on as well. As far as trying to stand out, like I don't think I really do. I don't really try to. I just try to keep him happy.
Nice.
Because if he's happy, he's gonna keep hiring me. And
And then
that's
it's about like friendship, partnership, but that's collaboration. That's I mean, you're not just like writing coattails. You're a part of the defining aspect of what makes his name successful and his art so familiar. Um, I think that's super cool. That like because of what you do, that's like what is the final product that's being seen. Like I don't think it would have the same effect without you being at the skill level to even take on work like what David pushes out.
yeah. People have told me, they really like when we team up. And people tell him on his channel, a lot. Whenever he's drawing and stuff, people get really excited and start to say, or they'll ask, when are we teaming up again? So
Ah, nice.
he texted me not too long ago, and he said, he wants to do something like, together again, and hopefully soon. And I said, yeah, man, I'm for that. I'm not going to turn down. He's my
Hmm.
favorite artist, not only just a friend, but he's also my favorite artist, and so I'm excited about it, and I hope that we do get to, because I mean, I've got my own project going. It's really picking up, and he's finishing up a creator-owned book that he had done, and so hopefully we're going to have that opportunity to do more things now.
Hell yeah.
And so I go, yeah, I hope so. I hope that it does, because there's still other factors that come in. Even though Dave and I are friends, in order for us to work together, for one, I mean, it's got to be the editors got to give their approval, or it's the company. I've got to be in their system, because
Dang.
I did work for Marvel, but I had gotten offered. David wanted me to ink him on some stuff at DC, but I wasn't in their system yet, so they had to pull an inker who's already in their payroll, their system already.
Oh,
So,
that's
it,
wild.
yeah, isn't that crazy? Like, there's a lot of these other things that factor in that we outside, looking in, we don't really aren't aware of. You know?
Yeah. Is David doing anything with that Ghost machine imprint?
No,
Okay, for some reason I thought I saw a
he's.
name on
I
a
mean,
roster.
he's good friends with Jason Fabok.
Yeah.
And Jason Fabok at one time had asked me. I came so close to inking him on Three Jokers.
Oh wow.
He said, he wanted to pencil digital and then have me ink him traditionally, but the deal would have been he kept all the originals,
Oh shoot.
and I
Especially if
was
you're inking them traditionally, that's a little
yeah,
odd.
I almost said yes, because man, I mean, I just wanted to be on the book
Yeah.
and get to ink Jason Fabok. But Meredith Finch, luckily, she stepped in and said, she said, no inker is going to agree to that, Jason. That nobody's going to want that, because put in all the hard work and not get any of the original, especially for a character like the Joker. I mean, I could turn and sell those and augment my income.
Yeah.
So
Honestly.
I didn't get on that project, and he decided to ink himself on that. But there's a lot of things like that happen in the industry, and how you can almost get on a project, or you're offered a project, but then it falls through. There's
Hmm.
so many factors, and this is why I tell everybody, man, create your own IP, make your own book. Like any new creators, this is. I know people dream of, oh, I want to be working on Batman because I love that character, and unless you own the character or own equity in it, don't waste your time. Because there's no retirement, there is no 401k, any of that. What are you going to do when you're older and you can't draw? But if you own your own IP, which nowadays today, oh my God, crowdfunding, you can go online and build an audience. It's not, it's so much more achievable now than it ever has been before. And if you own your own character, maybe, I mean, there's no guarantees. Maybe you're creating the next Spawn, the next Hellboy. Maybe you're creating the next Walking Dead. I mean, Robert Kirkman, if you keep in mind, Robert Kirkman created The Walking Dead 10 years before they even got picked up as a TV show.
Oh wow, yeah.
So it takes time, but he owns it.
Yeah, and like you look at everything else he gets to do now because of the success from that. Like I don't think Invincible or any of those things would even The Boys or any of those Amazon shows would even be around if it wasn't for the success of like The Walking Dead and Kirkman's other stuff like Outcast and all that.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. And so this is where I feel like I took the long road to get here. I sometimes almost wish that I had not wasted my time in the mainstream, working on other things for other people that I had no equity in. I don't have any ownership in. I wish that I had gone straight into creating my own books. Because
Yeah,
this
I can't
is,
tell you how awesome that is to hear, to be honest. Like that's really cool. I mean, that's cool to admit too. Like that takes a lot, I'm sure, to admit and to like ponder about as well. But that's a very, as an indie creator, that's really cool to hear in a sense, I feel.
yeah. I
You're
mean,
right. We all strive for that. We all
yeah,
100% want to, like I grew up with Marvel and DC, and that was always like the goal as a kid. And it wasn't until the past couple years making my own books that I realized like how fun it is. But like everyone always feels like you want to be drawn to that, but it seems less enticing, I guess, the older and the more I understand about comics.
Yeah, there. I had the opportunity to work on some of the books that I've always wanted to be a part of. I love Ghostbusters, so I worked on Ghostbusters, and I was so excited about it. I worked on Avengers, and I was so excited, just to be able to work on those characters. And then there were artists that I wanted to work with. I got to work with Brett Booth and David Finch and many other, artists out there. I got to ink over them that they were off my bucket list, and I was so excited. And so I appreciate that all that. But honestly, I think, man, I wish that I had created my own books sooner.
Because I'm sure all that balances out too, like all that work does pay off and it helps develop your name. But yeah, I could see how like at the same time working on your own stuff while you're building up that career, super beneficial.
Well, I mean, back in the day, if you wanted comic fans to know who you were, you wanted to get in the mainstream so that they put you in front of a big audience. So then you can go off and do your own book and have a following, a fan base.
Hmm.
But nowadays, you can achieve that on social media. You don't need to do anything for the mainstream. There's a lot of successful guys out there who just haven't done anything. They've made it really big in crowdfunding, and they haven't done a single thing for mainstream comics.
Yep.
So you really, nowadays you don't have to do that anymore. You know, um, just to build up an audience. You know, you can do that right here. On YouTube.
I guess that's kind of what Max and I are doing in a sense too. I mean, you and I were chatting a little bit before, but a lot of people here know that, Max and I make comics. We run the imprint, Apollo City Comics, and then Max also runs his own imprint along with Apollo, Rat Brain Zine. And oh my gosh, T'Challa, my cat's just like attacking me
Oh,
so bad. But like that's what's fun is like making uh doing this stuff with Comics Wellspring and making our own stuff, running our own publications. It's all experience and it's all really beneficial because we kind of get to help dominate some of this indie, area and highlight people. And then with our voices, we could lend it to other people and bring them onto the stage. So it's cool kind of having the experience of what we're doing and how it's transforming us as creators. And we're hoping it pays off and Apollo does do really well the next couple of years as we plan things out. But it's fun, establishing ourselves here to build our own IP.
well, I mean, for one, you got the support of Comics Wellspring, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, for any startup, and any company, having a printer support you. Man, that is
Yeah.
fantastic. There's just so much you guys can achieve, and there's, it takes away some of the risks, um,
Hmm.
that are involved. But man, that's awesome. I mean, just to be able to say, I mean, Max just said he's 23, and to have your own imprint at 23,
Yeah.
that would be on my dating profile.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm married, but but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of stuff, man. I'd be putting out there on my profile out there.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like I came from Southern California, punk roots, DIY, do everything yourself, right? Which has always been the attitude that I take with art, which is why I was so drawn to the zine space. So it's amazing to get to like live my dream and do that, um, and try and build up my own audience from the get go. Like, of course, I would love to I get good enough that one day I can do a like one Batman story, but it's my own Batman story that I like am am redesigning Batman. I'm rethinking his origins. It's my story still. It's using a very famous character, but I still get to like control that. Like that would be amazing. I don't know if that would ever be anything that happens with the stranglehold they have on IP now, you know. But I
Well,
always get to do my own thing anyways, right? I'm already doing my own stories. I would never stop that.
yeah, and the thing too, if you ever do get to do something like that, you definitely want to work it in your contract where you get equity in the character design that you did. So if they ever make a toy out of it or they use it in a movie, you get a royalty
Hmm.
from them using your redesign of Batman. They do
Yeah.
offer things like that, but the thing is too. I mean, the great thing about being able to do your own thing is that you're able to work for yourself and grow and learn. Where instead of just drawing for yourself and nobody ever sees it, and until you can get good enough to work in the or until you're good enough till the mainstream says you're good enough,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys that may not be able to be up to mainstream standards or what mainstream feels is marketable, may have a really good concept, and your concept is marketable and builds an audience, and then you just kind of you kind of grow as an artist. But luckily, say like you created I don't know, cattail microphone or whatever, you create this great looking cat character that just appears magically on live streams, and that becomes big. It's a big hit, and but you can't really draw that well, but people love this character, and it becomes really big and famous. And then you learn as you're going, and you eventually get good, but you're a creator because you have such a great concept. That would never happen because if you were trying to get in the mainstream, because they're constantly pushing you down, telling you no, your art's not ready, and they don't even care to hear about your how creative you are.
Yeah, I bet. That's rough. That's really rough.
Yeah, it's a really shrinking pond, and it's getting more shallow and shallow, unfortunately, in the mainstream. So, a lot of these guys are really just hiring their friends, people that, that are very very cheap. They're going overseas to hire artists that are really inexpensive, or they're hiring their friends, things like that, because the work is really small right now. Everybody's fighting for their spot at the dog dish,
Hmm.
or everybody's, it's just it's a really rough time right now to try to get in. But why try to go in to the area where everybody's starving when you don't really necessarily have to starve in crowdfunding and creating your own book and using guys like Comics Wellspring who are able to print books that and compete with. Honestly, I mean, my book when I got it printed in 2020, nobody had any idea that it was digital. Like people had no idea.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could put it right up to anybody. Marvel, DC books, and Comics Wellspring did amazing with it.
And the technology's only gotten better too. Now with like the huge giant digital press machines and stuff,
Oh,
it's crazy the color gamut and the paper choices.
Mhm.
The only thing that that still is a difference is if you do want to print on newsprint.
oh,
Um, you still have to use, I'm pretty sure, offset. As far as I'm aware, there's not a digital press that can print on newsprint, but you can get pretty close with a lot of lightweight papers. But I don't know.
Texture gradients, like I guess digitally, I guess you could do stuff like that too, like layouts. But yeah, it's rough. You get the effect, but not the feel, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
I always like that old newspaper smell.
Right.
After 30 years, I'm like, that smells good. Yeah.
when I'm digging in dollar bins, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for
Yeah.
that yellow paper and stuff. I'm like, where's the old stuff?
Yeah, I found myself now. I'm really only just collecting the old stuff now, and I say old because I mean even the stuff from the '90s, when I was younger, that I was really into. Now that's 30 years old now, and I just go, ooh, man, I'm getting up there. But I I go to the comic store now to go look for new stuff, and there's nothing that gets me excited like,
Right. I feel you on that
yeah,
100%.
Have you
and
checked out Philadelphia by Jason Tron
yes,
Alexander?
yeah, Jason
That's
Sean.
yeah, that stuff. That's new stuff that gets me excited still. I
Yeah,
th- he's
have you
amazing.
seen the book he did for Vertigo called Frostbite?
Oh,
The one
no.
about
No.
it's actually a pretty decent story. It's pretty cool. It's like a disease that people get. The world is frozen over, but people will get what's called frostbite, and they turn this like bluish flesh color, yeah, almost like a instead of being zombies that prey on brain, you catch this thing called frostbite. Um, and it's such a great, it's pretty good story. And then Jason Sean does all these great textures. I love looking at his art, man.
Yeah. Great dude. Really great person. Great dude in person. I loved meeting him. Really, really awesome.
He works digitally too. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, he worked traditionally for the longest time and did a lot of painting stuff, but now exclusively works on his iPad pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's able to get all those like traditional looking painted textures and stuff from digital. It's all about knowing your tools, even digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, he's worked traditionally. He knows what the tool should be, should look like. He knows, he's already developed his eye for what the finished work should
Mhm.
look like, and you know,
I bet that takes forever to develop. Is like knowing what it's gonna look like finished before you start.
yeah.
Oh,
I
Aaron
get
Lee
it.
says, love Jason Sean Alexander, Frostbite Rocks. Oh, cool. That's super rad that you've heard of that series. Super, super cool.
Yeah, it's a
I'll look into it.
good series. Yeah.
So when you're inking, this is just like a random question, but like how many inking tools do you use? Like, do you stick to one pen like for the majority of it, or do you shuffle up a couple tools? Do you do one thing for the main layout and then do other background effects with a different brush?
I It depends on what you're looking for. For me, I use a lot. I with my work, I use a lot of line work, so I can ink almost the entire drawing here with just the crow quill that I
Cool.
created.
Nice.
And if I need to do dry brush, I've created a brush that's a dry brush. Clip Studio Paint already has like a little splatter tool in it where you can do little droplets and control the particles. So really, I like using the minimal amount of tools possible so that I can get through the drawing as not trying to rush through it, but trying to get it done in a reasonable amount of time.
That's cool. That's exactly what I've been trying to do with like traditionally I was just using brush pens for a long time and I'm just trying to like really get that down in that feel. And even now I'm trying to use this one pen to like see how well I could just utilize this one. It's kind of like just narrowing down my options as much as possible and working with like just one or two tools, maybe three max.
Yeah, because really, I mean, if you're gonna master any tool, you've really got to force yourself to just really use it, and try to just use that one tool until you can really get comfortable with it. And during that process, you'll learn that you'll go, oh, I could use this same tool to achieve this effect or this line work, and you start to think outside the box. You go, oh, it's doesn't have to just give me clean lines. I can even get like a brush pen. Traditionally, if you let the ink start to dry on it, you can get more of like a dry brush look, a little grittier stroke when you throw your line down, and you start to figure out all these things as you go. I mean, it took
Yeah,
me.
go
I
oh, go
was
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it took me honestly 30 years to master the crow quill, to the point where I felt that I could actually say, I'm manipulating the tool and not just at its mercy.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm using two brushes digitally and that's it. I'm using one to throw lines and then one for like blacks and dry brushing kind of fades and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah. The heavy spots, that's where I was gonna switch up my pen for sure. Guess I don't know, I could kind of share what I'm doing, but it doesn't center on it right. Kind of see where I'm at.
You able to blow it up? Your
Yeah, I'll blow
screen?
mine up a little bit. Let me switch it. Oh, let me escape out of here. And we'll swap this over. Does it let me swap it over? Guess not. Guess you can kind of see it right there. Kind of working through some of this. I'll end up sharing my screen a little bit later, see if I can. But yeah, it's rough to see. It won't focus on it, and I just locked it.
Yeah, get the glare.
Yeah,
How do you like working on an iPad? Does it have enough like real estate area? Are you able to move around?
yeah. Moving around is really comfortable. I think the thing about it is just adjusting to the pencil and the grip. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Is like, and also I'm a left-handed person, so like,
Oh yeah.
I get dots everywhere every so while and whatnot. But
You can actually turn that off in Procreate.
oh
Um,
really?
yeah, so it will only read the pencil and it won't read your hand. Um,
I gotta try
so
that.
I have a really old iPad Pro model. It's 13 inches,
Oh,
and
sick.
that's what I've been using for years now. And I've had this Cintiq just lying around from my dad. So that's what I'm inking on today is the Cintiq and trying a different program in a different way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's
This
one of the new artists. Like one of the question I get with people that are going digital is like, what tool would I recommend? And I'm inking on a Cintiq Pro 27 inch or 27 inch, and I mean these things are expensive. It was you know I think it was about 3,000. I think is what I paid for it. But I didn't start that way, and I would always recommend to people you don't need to go like this unless you can justify the cost. Where
Yep.
for me at the time I was freelancing and doing stuff digital on the Cintiq, so it paid for itself through the work that I was getting. So I didn't have to pay out of pocket. But I wouldn't recommend anybody go into debt to
Right.
start out with this. Because it's I think you could start out with, like you said. I mean, if you got a hand me down, especially take that. That's free is
Yeah.
better. You can't you can't be free. So
It's
whenever
like
they,
you don't buy a $5,000 guitar when you're just starting. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you don't buy the Marshall stack and everything your first week of playing. Like you get the little practice amp. See what you do with that for a couple of years. Make sure you're devoted and you love it, and then you slowly up get the $500 guitar, and then you get the $900 guitar. Like
yeah,
you just test
yeah.
your because you know what, like even with music and stuff like that, I was a musician most of my life, and then it
Oh,
wasn't until 2015 did I switch over to be a writer and take on creative aspects. And it's like, dude, I spent thousands of dollars on gear, and now I still have a lot of gear, but it just sits. Like
wow.
know your passion before as you invest into it, because it could just get stuck sometimes, or it could change. Life stuff changes.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't need the biggest and the best.
No.
To in order to be the best. You know, I mean, there are guys out there, that don't necessarily, they buy some of the cheaper art supplies. You'll be surprised. Like I hang out with a lot of these, these guys that have been established in the industry, and I'm shocked when I go. I'm like, "Where'd you get this pencil?" They're like, "I bought it at the dollar store." I'm like, "No, really, where'd you get that pencil?" And they're like, "The dollar store." And I'm like,
Like,
"Oh
how do you
my,
make it look so good though?
I
Like,
know." I'm like, "Oh my god," So it's more of the artist than the tool, especially when
true.
you're first starting out.
And it's like the more types of random versatile tools you can master, like the better it shows like how you have to be skilled. You have to know your craft. And that's what it comes down to. Your tool is only an extension of you. It's not what you're outputting typically.
Yeah, that's so true. It definitely is. It's an extension, and what you're really trying to develop is your eye, your creativity, and when you're first drawing the drawing and conceiving conceptualizing what the art's going to be, the composition, and you're blocking stuff in. Scientists believe we're using the frontal cortex, and the entire time we're using the right side of our brain for creativity. And so, if that's true, when we're using that, then that's a muscle. We're trying to develop that muscle, and there's no weightlifting. The only regimen to do it is to just do it every day as often as you can,
Hmm.
so that that creativity in your mind becomes conditioned. So you see guys like I remember I watched Dave draw, and I just go, oh my god, Dave, how did you drew that so fast? Like my cover he did for Dragon Rage, that
Oh,
cover
sick. Yeah.
he drew it in under 2 hours, and I go, Dave,
Oh, whoa.
how did you do that? And he's like, well, he draws every day, you know.
Yeah. So that real, like, I mean, this is a perfect. How long did it take you to draw this piece? I'm curious.
This was a splash page, in Dragon Rage. It's just it's I blew it up a little more to make it look more like a cover.
Hmm.
I think it probably took me. I'm not as fast as Dave. I'm a pretty quick artist, but I'm not as fast as Dave. I'd say about 4 to 6 hours to
Dude, that's
pencil
insane though.
that
Like that's
character.
so awesome. That's yeah. This would take me, a week to work on. Like that, and I mean like 2 hours a day a week. Just working on little pieces and whatnot. So that just shows like the more you're at it, like you're gonna build the muscle memory, the skills, you'll be able to absorb and see things better too. I bet, huh?
Yeah, and plus, the more you draw, then the more the more with repetition, it's familiar. You work through things. You're like, oh, I've drawn this 100 times, and then you know what I mean. And you're so comfortable with it, you go, I can just go
Hmm.
right into it and draw it. And the one thing I get where people ask me all the time is, and I've seen it on some of your topics on your channel, where it seems to be a pretty popular topic, is people are like, well, how do you deal with creative block? And I go, I rarely ever have it. And people are looking at me like, like you're crazy. How do you not have creative block? Well, for one, I mean, I have to explain that as a penciler, I'm told what to draw. I mean, I get a description from a script, and it says, the character is leaning forward, looking menacing. He's got wings on his back. He's got horns or whatever, So I'm not just trying to come up with the idea myself, but I don't get stuck and go, oh, how do I draw this ever? Because I'm drawing every day, and I've
Hmm.
drawn this pose, I don't know, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So, and I've drawn something similar to it, maybe,
It comes down to bare bones fundamentals to a certain extent, right? Just starting with this design is like body shape, pose,
yep.
and then detail.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It goes back to what Mark Silvestri would say. Is you start drawing big, you start blocking in your shapes. I'm drawing the outer parts of the shoulders and where the feet are going to end, and the top of the head, and then I start working my way in to blocking in my figure, where my figure starts to look like blocks, and then it starts to look more like a mannequin, and then I kind of start to work in shapes and muscle tone, and then I go in and decide where my lighting's going to be, and I start rendering in lighting, and then I start putting in the intricate details. So it all happens in stages, and I've already got my process, and I'm already in rhythm because I don't stop drawing.
Nice.
Yeah, have you guys ever run into that? Have you guys stopped drawing and then start up again and find that it's a little
Oh
more
yeah.
difficult?
I
I don't draw often, like so I'm really new at this, but I did take a almost a year-long break between one Inktober and then life just got busy and I just didn't
Yeah.
pick up a pencil to the next Inktober. But like since this past October, I've been very consistent. But just that gap, I even saw how like I picked up stuff faster, how I recognize things quicker. And now that I'm back on drawing on a regular, like at least, once or twice a week when between projects and whatnot, like it's coming easier. I feel more confident for sure.
so I'm relatively fresh out of art school. Um, I've been
Oh,
out for a year now,
yeah.
and in art school you don't have time to have artist block. You know what I mean? I think that it's a little bit of a misnomer, right? Like I would say certainly I've had creative block, that being like coming up with fresh ideas and storytelling and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But drawing is something else. Um, and then the other thing that I would say about it too is that you're going to experience it a lot more as like a growing artist. Um, the thought behind that being that your taste is going to massively outpace your skills
Hmm.
until you put that time in. So you're going to know what looks good, but you're not going to be able to achieve that level until
Yep.
you've put in the time and drawn every day for years. Then eventually your taste and skill will align, you know.
Yeah, I have the image in my head, every time before I draw. There's always this image that's in there, and then my goal is always to try to get as close to that image that I imagined in my head. And when I finish my drawing on paper, and that's my goal. But they don't, even till this day, I still don't achieve it. Every time. There's it's pretty rare that I'll actually go, oh, I got it exactly, the way I imagined it.
I
Um,
think that's the hardest part for me too, especially as a beginning artist that who, I'm a writer. I this is a new direction for me. And it's like envisioning what I'm about to put down and coming up what to draw. And it's like what, Max was saying, like my taste, is ahead of my skills. So I want to do like a crazy cool spawn drawing for fun. And then you start and you're like, this is the hard chains are hard. You know what I mean? You have to figure out
yeah.
like the detail on that. But it's like, envisioning it, and I guess that's where I might get stumped, but I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna look at something and mimic it then and see how I build out from there.
Well, the trick for a good tip that I learned for drawing anything is two things. I heard this TED talk, and they were talking about the creative part of the mind and the brain. One of it was, they go, hey, if you're having difficulty, doing something like drawing something, it's because you don't understand it yet.
That's true. Yeah, 100%.
And I went, oh my god, like they're so right. And then Mark Silvestri would always say, kind of got from George Bridgman, is that everything can be drawn. It's all just shapes. Everything can be broken down into simple shapes. Once I learned that and I realized that, I was no longer intimidated to draw anything. I
Nice.
feel like I can draw anything, and it's all just simple shapes. And it's because if you start drawing things like chains, you draw them over and over. You start to pick up a quick process. Like for me,
Yep.
I watched Jim Lee, where Jim Lee said, "Oh, okay, I want chains, but I want them to flow around this dragon. So we're going to make the chains go like this." So he created this flow, this line of movement. And then, it's really just such simple shapes that if you were to really just even silhouette it and think of it as like
Mhm.
silhouette,
And then you just
like
bridge
this.
the little gaps right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when, if you were to just start drawing them, it's just simple shapes that you
Yep.
start to link them together, but if you draw that little underdrawing, the guideline where you've got this line for movement, and then you start drawing over that. And I watched Jim Lee, he just was drawing, I think the whip for Wonder Woman, and he was just having fun, like, oh, do the lines like this. And then Todd McFarlane did the same thing, where he would just kind of,
Yep.
they just get the flow first, and then your chains just look like they have movement and everything. And and
That's cool. I gotta try doing the line first because I always kind of just wing it. I do the shapes for sure. I have that locked in, but I never do the line and then do the chains over it. That'll probably add dynamics where you enlarge the size of each buckle too to show how forward and give a 3D effect almost with it.
yeah, it looks like the chains are flowing. There's movement in it, and then you'll learn little things like this. I mean, I'm still learning a lot of that, but as I learn those things, I start to notice that my drawings look a little more fluid and have more energy. And people, look at my work and are. I'm finally reaching the point now where people look at my work and go, "Oh wow, I like what you're drawing," because I didn't always get that. I would
So there's-
I would often get people when I would draw. People would go, "Yeah, this is a little wonky right here. Like this is a little weird right there." And I would just go, "Ah, forget it. I'm gonna quit," and go back to inking. But
So how has inking like really benefited you as like a penciler? Like what do you take away a lot from it overall that you would suggest for everyone else to try out?
well, inking made me aware of form and shape. You really have to be aware of that when you're inking, because you want to enhance the shape. So, for instance, on this horn right here is really just a cylinder like this. You know, where it looks phallic,
Mm.
but it and this would be the side. Let me shade that in so people don't look. That doesn't look like I drew something else. Um, so it's actually just like a curve, like a cylinder, you know. And so whenever you're going to render the drawing, you have to be aware of that shape that's underneath, so that whenever whatever rendering that you're doing has to contour to the shape like this. So that you're what you're doing is
Mm.
you're really trying to enhance the light and shadow of that shape. So you're trying to show that there's highlights on the end, but you also want to show that it's highlights and shadow over a curved object. So
That
inking made me really aware of form and shape and light and shadow underneath, because that's really what I was trying to emphasize when I was an inker. The other thing that it did for me as well is it gave me connections. It as far as networking, it got me in the business. I was able to get in the business, get my foot in. I was able to meet editors, become friends with editors, other artists, pencilers. Got to the point where pencilers would recommend me, request me by name. They would actually go, "I want to work with Jimmy." But of
nice.
course, I mean, the sad part is if the editor doesn't really know you, I mean, then they're not going to hire you, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh man, that's rough
it,
too.
yeah, I mean, they told Brett Booth said, I want Jimmy inking me. I forgot what he was doing at DC, and he said, I want Jimmy. They told him no. They didn't even know who I was, or they had no idea. You know what I mean? They
And
had
that's kind of
no
your job as the editor to like, talent search in that sense and know who does what, or at least
look at my
okay,
portfolio or
yeah, like
something.
let
You
me.
know?
You're suggesting him. Let's check this guy out. Like if it sounds
Yeah,
like you're gonna make a better book with this person, then I mean,
yeah.
yeah, let's check this out.
I got mad. I called up that editor, man. I said, "Boy, you better check my resume. You better ask somebody."
Dude, yeah,
What?
good, because that's well
No,
deserved.
no. They told him no, and I was like, "Oh man, really?" And he was like, "Yeah." He really wanted me to ink him, and this was before he had a Delso inking him, but
Oh, okay.
and I was supposed to do something with him, but yeah, it's a tough business, man. But
I was gonna say that sounds like the hard part about this, and like separate from indie work, is that you're just constantly trying to like reach out there and get something going, and it's
yeah,
so unreliable in a sense, like even with your name established and a thick portfolio full of stuff.
yeah, it got to the point where even after inking David Finch, it was still starting to get hard to find work as an inker,
Yeah.
and so for me, and especially when the pencils down thing happened, I just said, "Oh, that's it, man, last straw." I was already tired of them, feeling as if my inking skills didn't matter to editors, and
Hmm.
I was like, "Forget this, man." And I'm so happy and glad that I found the ability now to be able to crowdfund and print my own book. And I see so many people on your channel that are doing this. And I just go, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Like I can't believe I'm part of it. I get to create my own thing. And here's the one thing that I love so much about it is that I feel like we're bringing myself, David Philpott, who's my writer.
Hmm.
We're bringing something new to fantasy. Like the type of character that you see up here, people only know them as Dragonborn. Like they have no idea. Like this character, we've created a whole new lore, a whole new way for them to have these dragon-like features and powers.
That's sick.
Yeah, we're bringing something new and fresh, to the fantasy genre. And I feel that if you're not bringing something new and fresh, then just I mean, here's my one pet peeve is when I tell people go create your own thing so you own it. And then I see people go make their own version of X-Men or Superman. I go, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. There's already a Superman. There's already an X-Men. Don't do that.
Yeah, no.
You know.
Honestly, you're totally right on that, and it's kind of funny. Like, I've all I would read up until maybe a couple years ago was just superhero comics, Marvel, DC, everything. And the more I have like what I guess max letters all my series, so I have like 5 series in the works.
Wow.
And none of them are superhero based. Like they're all just stuff that like I would, everyone says make the comic you want to read. And so I
Yeah.
made like my first book that I'm putting out is it's a cosmic punk rock love story, and it's about,
Oh wow.
being a musician and cool sci-fi cosmic like stuff that I love and enjoy, and I put it all together and I just mesh things around, and it has a bit of everything for me that I love and adore. Like, and I mean, superheroes are one thing, but like there's so much part of like life that you could pull from and really recreate things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
That can really be a flavorful, amazing story. And I think some people are kind of scared or afraid to like take that side of them and just put it in the playground and just have fun with it.
Yeah, James O'Barr, he
Yeah.
when he created the Crow was kind of a bit punk rock. He was a musician and
Hmm.
had that '80s punk rock to it, and I just think, man, that's awesome. That people are doing that, and that's what I
Yeah,
grew up with.
don't even get me started on James O'Barr, man. The Crow is a masterpiece, dude.
Yeah, I
That
love
book
that.
is the
Yeah,
storytelling in that book is just it's so amazing.
yeah, I'm a big fan too. But I grew up with that. I grew up with independence. When I say grow up, I mean since I discovered comics at age 18. But
Mhm.
because I still consider myself a kid when I was 18, but I'm still a kid now. I think.
Yeah, honestly,
Uh,
yeah. I mean that I feel like comic creators stay the youngest. I until I became full time. Well, I'm still actually doing it part time. But like I work at a grocery store too. I work at an Aldi's, and it's
Wait,
funny.
isn't
Everyone
that the
thinks,
most expensive restaurant? I mean, grocery store in
oh,
California?
oh no, actually Aldi is like the most affordable grocery chain. And
Oh,
yeah, they're a German company, and they actually like help with they actually lowered their prices this summer to help with inflation. Which is really sick, and they
it's
have
like we're
great
lowering
products.
our price. Bread is now $15 a loaf.
Right? Yeah, straight up. But no, yeah, actually, Aldi's a pretty dope grocery chain. They have really good
Ah.
affordable stuff. But it it's kind of like interesting, like going there because you kind of get humbled by like having a day job sometimes too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a
Um,
day job too when I was in mainstream comics, working comics.
oh really? Oh wow,
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
getting by with extra bills and everything.
yeah. I worked for the largest Hispanic ad agency, and
Oh
I
whoa.
did graphic design for them.
Oh, that's sick. That's
Yeah,
super cool.
that was
I
how
work
I. Uh,
I work at an office supply store just for the industrial printers and art supply
oh
discounts.
Yeah,
wow, man!
that's a
Do they
win.
do like prints where you can get like like art prints and posters and stuff there too?
Yeah,
Or
I can print up to 4 feet on
wow,
on material as thick as canvas. Um,
Hmm.
wow.
Right.
so
A lot of our Kickstarter rewards come from his printing and his job.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
I
that's
I
pretty sick.
used to work for Kinko's. I was in their marketing
Oh, wow.
department for a while, and one of the benefits they gave us, they would say, "Oh, just go to any Kinko's, and we'll let you print." They used to give us, let us print a few stuff within reason. We couldn't, go crazy, but I used to print up all my little like business cards and stuff that I was doing for comic book inker or whatever.
That's sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
finding something that benefits you in some way. You know what I mean? That's the winning part.
Yeah, I'm all about that. How does this benefit me?
Yeah, like if I'm gonna be here, like what's my
Yeah.
discount? At least like,
No, that's true.
that's where I'm like at least I got health insurance there for right now for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so. It is so important health insurance right now because of, especially when you're in a recession, you're no longer able to afford all the healthy organics food.
Mhm.
You're starting to eat whatever you can afford, and
Yep.
unfortunately, if you're not eating the super healthy foods, your health can decline.
Mhm.
And then with that comes more medical expenses. And so definitely, having that.
So
Plus,
how
you should be
how
getting
are
checkups.
yeah, honestly, I gotta jump on stuff like that. But as I get older and everything, that's another part. It's just getting older as you're doing all this, like, doesn't get easier, I'm sure. How do you
Yes.
keep yourself healthy and functional to like always be on it with your? Because I mean, you put in long hours, like stuff takes a lot
Yeah.
of time. Like, How do you? What's like a routine or anything you do to just stay mentally and physically like ready?
Well, Well, I think the one thing I should um, point out is health wise. I mean, I do have my health issues. I am a heart failure patient, but I'm a
Oh,
cancer survivor, and the cancer treatments that I received in the '70s affected my heart. So I
oh
have this like
wow.
really unusual um, heart failure condition that's not your standard heart failure. Um, so I have to be extra aware and careful of how much time I spend sitting down because my doctors and everybody call sitting down and working sitting down is the new smoking. Everybody's
Mm,
sitting down, but um, for the mental health, really, to be honest, the drawing itself is a therapy. I find, there are times where I mean, my wife and I are very fortunate in this economy to be able to say we're homeowners.
nice.
And so with that, I mean, there's the stress of, you've got the mortgage, homeowner association, you've got all these other
Mhm.
bills on top of, regular car payments and all that stuff. So it can be stressful. But when I sit down and start drawing, it all goes away.
Nice. Yeah,
You,
you're right, dude. I mean, that's kind of why we do this too. It's really more. I realize how therapeutic this became for me. And when I first started doing this drawing show on Apollo City Comics, when I started off just doing my own show a few years ago, and that's how all this kind of developed. It was I had just moved. I was in like a really dark place. Like I was in a new city with really didn't know anybody. Didn't restarting my life and doing this live
wow.
drawing show. Just like it brought so much peace and like even the days you don't want to do it. Once you sit down and get going, it's a blast. Like even today, I mean, I've been in meetings since like 7 a.m. and I was just like, man, I still got to
Wow.
draw from 8 to 10 tonight. See how we do. I'm having a blast. I couldn't imagine stopping. Like I would have to see it to the end. It's just so comforting.
No, it really is. I find that, art is my therapy and it gets to therapy gets to be my job. And at the same time, I feel good. Even when even when there's a deadline, when I've got editors or when I had an editor that would be emailing me, I'd turn on my email and there it was, the editor going, "Hey, can we get expect that page by tomorrow?" I'm like, "Expect the page by tomorrow? You just sent it to me 2 hours ago."
Yeah.
I mean, it takes time to create, this stuff. And, fortunately for us as inkers, we always got the work because the penciler was behind.
Yeah, of course. So now you got to hustle 10 times faster
So
because of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so for me, now that I'm no longer in the mainstream, I'm no longer in that hustle anymore. Where I used to work 14-hour days, 7 days a week,
Oh,
and I never took off for holidays. I rarely saw family. I didn't go out to movies. My friends, would go, "Hey, we're going to the movies," and like, "Well, have fun, guys," because I had to work, inking, But now that I'm doing my own creator own book, and with crowdfunding and do my own book, I can take the time that I need, And so what I do now is I work a regular schedule 8 to 5. I take a lunch break noon, take an hour lunch. I eat, do whatever, and then when the wife gets home, generally we'll go and watch TV. I spend a couple of hours there with her, and then I come back and I get back on the drafting table and I work a few more hours, or the digital drafting table, work a few more hours, and then it's off to bed, and then it's repeat again. But the great thing is though, I can stop during the day and stretch my legs, go for a little walk, take a 15
yeah.
minute break.
That's
You know
awesome.
what's
That's
funny is Klaus Janson was actually just talking about this. He you know, he's a king of a lot of books. He's an amazing inker, and he was teaching for a really long time, and eventually he was just like, you know what, I can't, like, I don't connect with my students, they don't connect with me. Um, so I'm just gonna take a step back and do my own work now. And he loves it. The ability to just work at his own pace and really worry about the quality of his work rather than like being a slave to a deadline. Um,
oh, I bet.
it's it's powerful to be able to work on your own stuff until you're happy with it and be able to take the time you need to do that.
Yeah, because stress creates a hormone called cortisone. I think is it cortisone or something like that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, and we don't realize that things, can raise blood pressure. It can then start to affect your heart. I mean, there's a lot of health issues that come with it. And I have friends that are in the mainstream, and they're always talking about how they're dying.
Oh
That
gosh.
it's just they feel like comics is killing them, and I just go, whoa, you guys are pretty big names. Wow, is that why do it then?
Yeah,
And
it's brutal. Like, honestly.
so because we get excited and we dream of, I want to be on this monthly book. I want to be drawing Spider Man and doing all this and be famous. Well, a lot of that comes at a price, and a lot of those guys have paid the price.
Well,
Physically, mentally.
and everyone wants to be, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and start this empire, but it's like, how they started that too was like coming up with their own creations. Like
Yeah.
Jack like came up with all of it, dude. Like that's why if you want to be Jack Kirby, then go be Jack Kirby and go start making your own comics. Like that's what
Yeah,
you should be
Steve
doing.
Ditko. I mean,
Yep.
not everybody can be that creative. I mean, sure, we're going to need some cogs. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to need, if you just want to be the cog in the machine, and you're happy doing that. Hey, I mean, we're going to need people doing that because, like when your imprint takes off, you're going to need those people, but
Yeah.
to work on the book for you. But if you can be the Jack Kirby and create your own stuff, man, that Steve Ditko's and Stan Lee's and all that. Man, I mean, that's who I'd rather be. I'd rather be somebody creating and leaving a legacy behind.
Oh yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And it's hard. It's hard. Not everybody can do it. So I get it. It's not something that just anybody can do. Come up and create something new and fresh. But I say, just try.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of creators, we think about their pinnacle work and they don't reach it till like they're in their 40s or 50s after doing it for, 30 years. So like people forget that. They just think like, oh,
Oh yeah,
Fantastic Four. I mean, he just went out and made change comics. It's like, oh, well, I mean, look at all the comics Jack made before Fantastic Four. Like he knew comics in and out in
yeah.
every genre before any of that got picked up. So it's like, yeah, man, like you just have to get to work and just test it out because you're never going to learn unless you sit down and do it. You'll just speculate and psych yourself out of stuff more than anything.
Yeah, it's like I think 20-year-old me couldn't have created Dragon Rage, and if I did create my book Dragon Rage in my 20s, it wouldn't have been original. I think I would have really just been trying to copy,
Hmm.
what else had been out there. But at this point in my life, I don't care about, I don't want it to be like anything else. I want to create something different, and I think part of it is a little bit of ego.
Nice. Yeah, you
I
got
just
to
want,
understand.
yeah, I want it to be my own thing just for the sake that I can say it's my own thing.
Hmm.
A little bit of bragging rights, I think. But yeah, I agree, man. Like older me is definitely a better creator than younger me.
I
Yeah,
will
I mean,
be
I'm curious.
right back. My cat threw something down.
Oh yeah, no
Max, you got
problem.
to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and actually, I was just about to ask you what have you you said you're creating books. What genre
I
do you
work in
prefer?
I prefer horror. It's
Oh
just
yeah, wow.
what I've always been drawn to. Um so I just put out like a month ago. It's like a queer surreal horror book based on me and my partner's true life experiences. Staying in a black mold covered motel room.
Oh shit.
Um yeah, right. And
Wow.
it's kind of like a one room surreal neon horror that's like it's not overtly blood and gore, but just something that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, and then right now I'm working on a double issue camp horror book that's completely silent, so there's no dialogue,
Oh yeah.
um, and doing a 16 panel grid throughout the entire book.
Oh,
Uh,
wow,
and
man.
then and then after that, it's my own series, which is it's going to be a black metal horror book. That's the goal of it is, well, not only to tell kind of like an isolationist horror story, but I want to stretch my muscles and really see how far I can break the rules of comics and play with formalism and stuff like that. Um,
That's the thing. I think we should always be trying to push and do things just a little differently. I mean, Todd McFarlane did that in his art, and the way he was doing panels and the way he drew Spider-Man's webbing, and he was just doing things a little differently, and they were constantly telling him no, or he was doing it wrong.
Oh my
But
gosh.
he
well,
ain't
nobody
gonna.
can tell me no, right? Like it's
Yeah,
my book. I get to just make it and do it in my studio here, and it gets to be kind of like a pure vision of what I want it to be.
yeah,
And like what's great is like, working together, like I work so much with Max, and Max looks at all of the Apollo books, he designs all of our anthologies, and he does a lot of stuff for us. So we've all gotten to a point where we could give each other feedback and thoughts and bounce stuff around, and it's creative growth for all of us. Like it helps all of us understand the process and what's involved, and keep an eye out and understand things like lettering and inking and coloring, and just balance within pages. And so it's really cool, like seeing each other grow and kind of hyping each other up and helping each other do that.
yeah. That's one of the things that I had missed for the longest time was the studio environment where I was fortunate enough to work in a few studios throughout my journey, and it was fun. It was more of like a boys' club than that we'd forget we were supposed to be getting work done.
Hmm.
We were just a bunch of comic nerds having fun and goofing off. But I missed that because there still was the advantage of I could turn to somebody else and go, hey, what do you think? And to get another creative eye on my work for
Yep.
feedback. Or I could go watch another artist draw, peek over their shoulder, and steal one of their techniques.
Yeah, yeah, honestly.
So, I mean, borrow. I meant to say
Yeah,
borrow.
bro.
Not that I ever gave it back, but yeah, and that's the thing now about having, like StreamYards and live streams that we kind of get the advantage of the studio and the virtual studio, and you can hang out with other people. Where I was talking with Del Keown, and we were talking about the way he draws hands and fists, and I was like, so how are you doing that? Like, how do you like? What's the process that you visualize? When you're drawing Pit, he's like, he's always doing this, and Del Keown just said real quick, he's like, well, he separates the two fingers a little further, and then he brings the others kind of back
Oh
to kind
wow.
of get this thing. And he said he always does that. He always just for some reason puts a bigger gap in between the index finger and the pointing finger,
Oh.
and I just went, Dell, you just told me I'm gonna be doing that now with all my drawing and every time I draw now. And so I did that in this drawing right here. I did my version
That's
of
there you go.
like Del Keelan saying, separate those two space between those two fingers and then bringing these back. And I went, all
Oh,
right, you just
that's sick.
you might
That's
have just created some future competition, Dale. No, I'll never
That's
be.
the
Yeah, I was saying I'll never be a Del Keown. I'll never be at that level. But I mean, it's nice to think maybe I can achieve that.
that's the one thing that I really want to experience is being in a physical studio with other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a digital age, right? So like it was always just do everything online and share your work online and do your art at home with not around other people. So
And it's
I
cool every so while, but like, It's great to be in. I mean, I know Brandon DePillis and our friend Jeff Demars. Jeff was on the inking episode, the first one on Inspired Ink. I think that's the one you messaged me on actually. Uh, but yeah, they do a live drawing every single week or something, and I think that's so cool. Those two creators get to go somewhere and draw, like do this, but together.
The only thing that Max that you're not gonna like from a physical studio and being around other artists is that your art supplies are going to start disappearing. You're not going to find an
Oh,
eraser. It always starts with the eraser, man. It's That's what it was. We used to hide our erasers just because they would disappear. The eraser, you know.
oh my gosh.
I mean, they wouldn't.
That's
Most
pretty
guys
funny.
were really cool. They wouldn't steal like art supplies, but with the eraser would be gone. Or they just borrow it.
I
You find your eraser on somebody else's desk. You know.
I always lose my eraser, so I basically am stealing my eraser from
Oh,
myself.
yeah,
But you just have to have one big community needed eraser, just a big ball somewhere in the
Yeah.
corner.
yeah. Everybody puts theirs at the end of the day. You ball them up together, and
Yeah.
in the morning you just take a piece. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like why we decided to do this live and not just like Max and I, and then we post it. Like, we want everyone to like do this with us. We wanted our community to like get the file and print it, take out their iPad, practice digital if they do traditional, like switch it up a little bit. This is to challenge
Yeah.
everybody. It's very much a community, and I love when people submit like their drawings when they're done, or they just tell me it was like a great stream, or they had a great time
Wow.
watching. And like the lesson one we did, that was kind of a scary one because it was it was building blocks, making squares and cubes, and we were like, man, it may not get very many views, but it's a vital part. But then all the people who commented it were like, this was a great exercise. So glad you guys did this, like stuff like that. So it's cool building the community here, in that virtual sense to encourage everyone.
Yeah, that's what I love the most is being able to go around and watch other artists work and to watch their technique, watch as their process and because there really isn't just it's art. There's not just one way to do everything, and sometimes when I'm struggling to understand something. Sometimes I can find an artist that'll his process will really resonate with me, and I
Hmm.
go, "Oh my God, I get what he's doing, and I like what he did. And then I'm able to do it, and I think that's why, partially why I was able, I was gravitated towards Dave Finch, and his style is because it just resonated with me. I understood the way he was drawing body shapes and types, not realizing that he learned that from the same people I could have. John Buscema. He got stuff from Rudy Nebra and a lot of these other artists. Mark Silvestri and stuff. And I go, but when I watched them do it, it it didn't really resonate with me like it did when I saw Dave do it.
Hmm.
And I think because Dave and I are close to the same age, he's like 3 years older than me. So watching a guy who's close to my age do it, I think was just I don't know, maybe it was had something to do with that. Why it was easier for me to understand.
Yeah, that could make sense. Just like I mean, you guys just clicked and you vibed and it just resonated. You guys kind of find it has that connection. I mean, hi, I guess a lot of creators that you deal with peer wise, just you have the same taste growing up, so you kind of have the same vision for stuff or same understanding or
Yeah,
things like that too.
I'm still trying to figure out where I fit in all of that because I'm so young. You know,
Yeah.
I
gee, Max,
like
thanks for reminding us. Damn it, even a
like
Brandon, you even make Brandon look old with your age. I mean, and Brandon's young, man.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm getting there. I just turned 32, so I don't know how young.
Oh, wow. My
Yeah.
my my wife is just turned 30. Or I mean, she's
Oh,
about to turn 31. She's going to be 31 in a couple of months. So
there you go. See?
yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up like not reading superhero comics at all. I like might have like read some in the newspaper or not in the
Yeah.
newspaper, but like I would get
Like you're
like weird
23. What did you find in a newspaper? How do you even know the word
Yeah,
newspaper?
right.
You
Yeah.
know?
but like I grew up like reading like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac by
Oh
Jonan
yeah,
Vasquez and
yeah.
like Hellboy and stuff like that. And then like there's not a lot of kids that my age that like want to do comics. Everybody wants to do animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a few. There's I forget his first name, which is really shitty of me to do, but Heron Art. He
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
Frank.
Morgan. Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah, Morgan. Yeah, that's right.
Dude, that kid's astonishing, man. At
Yeah,
age
and he's
18 or whatever.
he's got the dedication too. You know.
He's a guy that's kind of already created his own style of inking. Like already, like as a kid, like he does cross hatching in such a bizarre way. I'll send you his
Wow.
profile. It's really interesting. Um, the kid impresses the hell out of me.
No, yeah, I definitely like to see it. I love to see what other people do with line work and go, hey, how can I incorporate some of this in my work? You know?
Hey, it's Jeff. Just speaking of him, Jeff is an awesome inker. He is. I feel like the most dedicated inker I know, aside from you, Jimmy.
Thanks. Yeah, I get surprised sometimes now. I'm at the point where when people go, oh yeah, Jimmy, an inker, I go, oh yeah, that's right. I was an inker. I'm starting to now think of myself just as an artist, more so than just being able to ink. I feel like I've evolved, but it's definitely a skill that I'm grateful for. To be able to know how to ink things and
It's
you know,
definitely something I was drawn to a lot as I started wanting to draw. Like I wanted to ink. I thought it just seemed like a fun, interesting, and not only it's. I guess because I was a bass player too. I feel like everyone feels like bass and inking are two of the easiest things like possible, but it's actually quite not true. It's the technique and style that goes into all of it.
yeah, I used to really idolize a bass player named Flea in Chili
Yeah,
Peppers,
Yep.
and so I started trying to pick up the bass, and oh my god, it's hard. I
it's
just,
wild. It's
yeah,
and that's what I would play when I played music. I played and I was like into prog music, so I leveled up to like a six-string bass, and I was a tiny little kid just with this huge six string and this big old 8x10 cabinet. Like
wow,
Did you go fretless?
I had a fretless acoustic actually.
There you
I would
go.
because I studied classical music, so I would use the fretless for a lot of classical pieces.
I had some friends of mine when I was in high school. They were in a band. They were forming a band, but they didn't have a bass player. And I said, no problem, guys. Let me go out. I'll buy a bass guitar tonight, and I'll join your band tomorrow. I thought I thought it was that easy. And so I stayed up all night trying to learn the bass guitar. And oh my god, I was like, no, no, I'm taking this back.
It's what people think of what about art a lot of the time, being like, "Oh, I can
Yeah,
spit that out." You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, "No, good luck with that." Like,
yeah, I still get that a lot. I get people that will, online and I'm live streaming and showing people, how some techniques or something in drawing or inking. And I still get a few people going, looking at me going, yeah, I'm gonna be a much better artist than you are. And I'm like, oh, cool. And they're
right,
like, yeah, I'm gonna start drawing right now, and by tomorrow, I'm gonna be a lot better. And it's like, yeah,
right, good luck
that's what
with
I
that.
thought when I
Yeah,
when I picked up the pencil. Yeah, it's definitely it'll humble you. You'll
and I love that too. You know what I mean? Because it's really easy to have an ego in this world, but like when
oh
I
yeah,
that's why I kind of like having the grocery store job too. Is like I came back from San Diego Comic Con last year, and Max was with me actually, and it was like the funnest, coolest convention. Any convention I come back from, I'm always just super hyped because there's just cool stuff that goes on. And then I walk into my grocery store job, And my boss is just like, "Get to work, loser," and I'm just like, "All right, whatever." Like,
Yeah, you're nobody
like,
here.
yeah,
You're
nobody cares
yeah.
who you are. You know what I mean? And once you accept that too, you're a bit more free. Like, you're just, you're doing your best, and you're recognized by the people who adore you, and the people who adore you like genuinely respect you. And I'm sure, like when you're at cons and whatnot, like you get that vibe in your career.
Yeah. My first question, one of my first questions to Dave when I met him, I met him and I said, "All right, Dave, I'm gonna have to get the Geek Boy phase out before we can become, before we start working together." And I said, I got a bunch of questions, man. And he was real cool. And I said, "All right, here's a stupid question. When you go around places, do people recognize you? I mean, I bet people recognize you, right?" And he's like, "No." He's like, I can go wherever I want. Nobody knows who I am outside of a convention, a
Nobody
comic book
recognizes,
convention. Here, I thought poor Dave couldn't go anywhere, man.
right? Like paparazzi practically with collectors and fans and
Yeah,
other people. Yeah. I mean, that you can't mistake that bald head. You know what I mean? It does shine.
yeah. I'm like, oh, he's definitely recognizable, But I thought, I thought everybody loved comics or knew comic artists,
Right.
but he's like, no, nobody knows who I am wherever I go. But unless he's at a comic convention. So that's true, man. I guess you're at a comic convention, your ego can get kind of blown up. You get people praising your work, But I think that's why artists do it. I think that's why I can't speak for Dave, but I honestly would say I think that's why he does it is to that interaction with the fans because I think
Oh yeah.
we all kind of need that validation at some point, even though we would like to think we don't need it. I mean, we shouldn't need it. We're not. We're honestly, to be healthy, you shouldn't need it. But I think we all kind of want that praise and that validation of our work from
Well,
time to
you're
time.
so caught up by yourself with your own thoughts, like naysaying, correcting, editing, like erasing, like you're just filled up in your head. And sometimes you just finish a piece and you're like, well, this was the best I could do. And then people see it and like, that is epic. That is amazing. Like, man. And it brings you, like, it gives you hope in your art. And you're just like, okay, no,
Yeah.
you're right. Like, I can do this. Like, thank you. Like, I'm so glad this makes you excited besides me because I put so much time and effort into it, like you want some little gratification for the work you put in. Oh, we got Jeff asking right here. Jimmy, any tips for inkers pushing into pencils? This is where I am, and I find my inker brain tends to creep into my pencils and I overanalyze.
Yeah. The so when we're inking, and I'm sure Jeff is maybe going to agree with this, is that we think in the world of finishing art. We're finishers,
Hmm.
and so earlier in the stream we were talking about put away the eraser and just draw, get gestures in your art to loosen up your art. That's really what you need to do is to stop thinking about say these horns. I'm thinking as an inker all the cool textures, all the little, to ink this part, going, oh, I want to do all these cool little like textures in here that I could do for little finishes. But when you're a penciler, you have to change gears and think of it, instead of that, you have to think of it as shapes, like here's the horn, and you think of it as a shape, and you want to really is to really think of it as messy. Just keep drawing through. You want to be able to, if you are drawing and we got the guy's hair. I want to stay loose with the way that I'm gonna make his hair blow. And I'll block in, my shapes real rough. And not thinking as a finisher with comic books, where how we can really put in cool little textures and detail. Right now, we're just trying to put in, really cool, little shapes, and we're thinking loose, messy, and we can put in his cool horns. You know, and for me, it took me a long time to really to want to because I would want to do really cool finishes, and then I realized, oh my God, in order for me to draw, I have to get messy and loose. And
I guess
that
that's where I
was,
stiffen up a lot too. You're right. Yeah, just being loose with it. And I always try
yeah,
to get real stiff immediately with some pencils.
You know what
yeah.
I think helps with it too is using a larger tool too,
Yeah.
Oh,
because it
yes.
forces you not to get into those details because you've got a larger
You know,
brush or larger
when I use
pencil.
a
Or
thicker pencil, I feel better with it. So maybe that is like right on the fucking dot.
Yeah. I didn't want to brag, but I got a pretty big tool. Yeah. No, but yeah, that's one of the things I do is like I will switch over when I'm doing the under drawings like this. I will I will go with a 10 to 12 pixel, sometimes 15 pixel brush pencil, and then when I get into finer details, then I'll switch down to like an 8 or something. Those are really the only times that I actually switch brush sizes. You know, is when I'm penciling. But yeah, that's the really good tip, man. It took me a long time to discover that. Look at that, you're 23. I don't like Max anymore. Uh, I mean, it took me a long time really to figure that out. Where I went, oh yeah, if I do a bigger tool, yeah, yeah. Or when I was traditional, I'd use a pencil that just wasn't sharpened as much. You know.
Nice.
yep.
I hope that answers Jeff's question, man. I'm sorry that was long-winded and stuff, but hopefully,
I think it makes sense. Yes, yeah, yeah, Max. That is a good point. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, just the thicker tool, like, I mean, when I do sketches now, I feel like I wish I had my pencil box with me. But that like really thick, like 6B or something like that, it's always like really fun to like get the design out. And I feel like it adds some darkness, so you can kind of visualize some inks a little bit more too at the same time.
oh yeah,
I use a giant lead holder. That's what I use.
oh yeah, yeah, like the type that hold like I mean, is it like a charcoal or is it still graphite?
No, it's still graphite, but it's really thick. I know you can get there's the 2 millimeter. That's like a standard lead holder. That's what David Finch uses.
Yeah.
And then there's a step up from that I don't know what the size is. Um, but I use both of those. I use a 2 millimeter lead holder, and then I use a larger one sometimes too. And that comes from life drawing classes. It's um, then you're using vine charcoal, but um, I don't want to use vine charcoal on a
No.
comic page unless I'm using it for some special effect or something.
Interesting. That's cool. I'm excited to play with all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I still do stuff traditionally, so I still, you know, it's not everything I do is digital. I still, so I still like going through and trying to figure out different stuff. My wife is the one who is, she was taking some art courses just for fun. And even though her husband's an artist, could teach her, but she would come back with, using like just stuff like charcoals and stuff. And I go, what is this? Like, because I learned to draw comics. I didn't draw before that. So for me, I'd never seen some of these tools, and I just like, what is this stuff that you're coming back with? And a lot of it is so great. You can really use a lot of that stuff. So again, I don't like Max. He's learning too fast. He knows more than I do, I think.
I got the mind of a learner, man. I just
Yeah.
absorb everything. It's like I love the craft so much that I really do spend so much time just reading and studying and practicing and trying to absorb. It's draining for sure. But I mean, it's useful for what I do.
No, it's definitely a really good thing. I come across people all the time online that just think they know it all,
Oh
and
yeah.
I did a video on like how to render, and I had people that came in and just came in with some attitude, and telling me that that they know more about rendering. And I thought, well, then why are you looking up videos on how to render?
And just talking trash on him. Yeah. Go make your own video
Yeah,
then, dude. Like,
yeah. I'm like,
I'm so
whatever.
wrong. What are you wasting your time for?
I know. I'm like, then you should be teaching, man. Why are
Yeah.
you looking up videos of, but yeah, you get people that, they're closed minded. And I used to be that way for the longest time. And so you never learn anything that way. And if not, it's going to take longer, you know, like,
Yeah.
to get where you want to be. So, I mean, that explains why Max is, advanced for being what, you're like 23 months old, still, still a
Basically,
baby.
Jeff, here we go. I have all sorts of questions. Oh, Jimmy, what advice do you have for transitioning to digital inking?
Yeah, is to be patient. If you're a traditional inker, there's so many things that you could do. Digital technology isn't quite there yet. I mean, it isn't exactly traditional. You can't do everything you could do traditional, and it certainly won't feel that way. But is to be patient with digital. But it is it's getting there, and I would recommend using Clip Studio Paint. I don't get paid for any of that for saying that, but it is definitely a really good tool. I don't understand how. Yeah, I'm working in what would be raster, but it doesn't work like raster. It feels like vector almost, clean, neat lines. I don't know the magic. I don't know how it works, but yeah, I'd recommend Clip Studio Paint and to be patient and to buy my brush kit.
There you
Get
go.
my brush kit. No, just to really, give yourself time and be patient. And there's definitely a learning curve, but I feel it's worth it going digital. You know.
I'm probably gonna buy your freaking brush kit. Those crow quill brushes look amazing. They're pretty cool.
Does it
Oh,
work for
thanks.
Procreate too?
I don't use Procreate, so I don't know if Procreate can use Clip Studio Paint brushes. I know that Clip Studio Paint, it goes the other way. We can use Procreate and
Oh,
we can use Photoshop
that's cool.
brushes. But I don't know if Procreate goes. I don't know if the door swings both ways.
Oh, yeah.
But
It kind of does. Procreate has a different brush engine, like the way it processes is kind of different. Um, so you can certainly import Photoshop brushes and Clip Studio brushes, but they might not act how you'd expect them to, if that makes sense.
oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Clip Studio. I mean, my brush set has been up there since 2018. It's rated the number one set up there. So people, have really, I've gotten almost completely 5 stars for it, and people, the response has been really nice. A lot of people say thank you, for creating the brushes and stuff like that. And a lot of them, I don't think, are even aware that I was an inker. It was the first time digital brushes were created by an inker for inkers, for inking. And people just seem to be really shocked when they get them. But I think, I don't know. I almost get offended and go, "Why are you shocked? I was an inker. I worked, I mean, I know what a brush should do, but I got to remind myself most people aren't aware of that. They have no idea. They're like, "Oh, yeah."
We touched on this a little earlier, really in depth too, so it might be worth checking out the beginning of the video, Jess. But talking about, do you feel it's worth it to go digital with the loss of physical pieces to sell?
Oh yeah, yeah. To answer. So, I've worked with artists like I've gotten like Brett Booth and David Finch and stuff like that, and I still ink Dave Finch. But so for a guy like Dave Finch, I will ink him. Um, I will ink him traditionally most of the time because, for one, he's been in the industry so long that he's got a fan base that want to buy Dave Finch art, or it's I will ink traditional based on the character. So if we're doing something like Batman or something, then I definitely want to ink him traditionally because there is a fan base out there that will buy the original art just because it's Batman. But there was a time where Dave and I did a cover for Radiant Black #1, which was created by Kyle Higgins for through Image Comics. So that one, we didn't. Nobody knew the character. So I asked Dave. I said, "Hey, Dave, let me ink you digitally on that. I don't care about having an original." And so I inked him digital on that, and nobody could tell the difference. People were looking at it, going, "Oh my god!" It's amazing work, and people couldn't tell that I didn't do it traditionally. So you just have to think of, are you selling original art now? If you have a fan base that's just buying away your original art, then why go digital? But if you don't have that type of fan base, then why not go digital? If you can speed up your process, unless you're trying to work on characters like Spider-Man or Batman that already have a huge, 80-year fan base. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard to sell original art
Yeah.
unless you're a superstar artist or you're drawing Batman or something. So it's it's
Max, what's
not
your
easy.
experience like? Since I know you've sold a few original art pieces, like who do besides Mark? I know Mark just buys your pieces because it's Mark and he loves us.
Yeah, I it takes a special kind of person to buy original art. Um, and I like having originals more just so I can have my own like morgue of books. Um, but it is hard to sell original pieces for sure.
Yeah. Here's a Moon
That's
Knight
a
that
beautiful
Dave,
piece.
Dave and I did.
Oh,
Um,
sick.
he did the Moon Knight. I inked this one digitally. I did an inking demo over his channel. If you go over his channel, you'll see this one, and we did this for that inking demo where he penciled it. He goes through and he shows people how he's penciling, and then I come in, I ink it, and then some guy comes in and colors it and shows how he colored it. So we showed the whole process, but I forgot the name of that color. It's Kirk something. But
Is it Mike Perkins? I think.
it
No,
was
wait.
Kurt, I think, something I forgot. But this one was just for a demo that we did on Dave's channel. But um, and I wish I could. I'm trying to find that Radiant Black. I want to show you guys how it came out. I think I have it. Let me see. Oh yeah, I do have all my inks over here. So right here is this is the cover that I did for the first time I did digital, and this is for Image Comics.
Oh wow,
And
Dang.
that's sick,
only
dude. Yeah,
regret that I have was I would do wish I inked it traditionally because Radiant Black became really popular.
yeah.
And Dave and I, he's really cool, man. Like he would give me every third page I would get, and with covers he would just split them with me. Like I'd get every second. He
That's
I do a
cool.
cover for him, then the next cover I got, and so this one right here you can get. You can see all those cool textures, man, that I just did with. That's digital, all there. And but yeah, if you guys Google Finch and Reyes Radiant Black, it's through Image Comics, and you'll see this guy right here. This character with that symbol.
That's sick.
Yeah, we did that one, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that. Oops, let me see if I find my folder here again. So I would also go through, and here's another artist who I didn't ever get the chance to ink him professionally, but he and I were talking about me inking him, Victor Bogdanovic.
Oh
And
wow, yeah, I recognize that.
yeah, so he sent me this over. So I was going to do a test page to show his editors what I could do. And this was before the pandemic, to kind of show all the cool textures and stuff you can achieve with digital and the type of line work and of course this is at a slower pace than what you're seeing me do on this one. This one I'm just kind of like zipping through and just kind of going through a little faster with put in the trying to put in quick textures and stuff. But this stuff over here I take a little longer
Yeah, I can imagine.
to do and but digital, man, I mean, honestly, I think I've only scratched the surface. I've created all my own brushes because like Jeff going from traditional to digital. You bring a knowledge with you. You bring a certain muscle memory. You bring experience with you, and so it gave me an advantage over other inkers, other artists who had never inked before. And so I was able to go through customized brushes and make my ink stand out. But I think I've only just scratched the surface. I mean, you're gonna have guys, the next generation coming in here, and I'm sure you guys will, elevate this and take it a level higher than I ever could.
That's dope.
But here's the test page. Let me show you guys a test page that I did. Um, I was already inking David Finch professionally. We were already working together, and yet I'm still find myself doing a test page to convince him that to let me ink him digitally. I was like,
Oh,
Dave, let me ink you digitally. This is what I could do, and this is the page that I showed him that he let me ink him
oh wow.
on that radiant black.
Oh, I
Yeah,
recognize
it's
that. Yeah,
crazy.
like,
So Denny Mickey inked the original, but I wanted to show Dave, like, look what I could do, digital. Uh, so here, oh, here's the my beautiful wife here, the one she's the one that I told you is she's turning 31. Oh, she's hiding back there. Yeah, and it's funny. People either remember me by, oh yeah, you used to ink Dave Finch, or oh, you have that young hot wife.
there you go.
I'm like,
You're so sweet.
couldn't you guys just say I'm talented? Remember
Yeah,
me that way.
Can we go for a walk?
That's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
it's amazing.
But yeah, so here's, all the cool like textures and stuff. And this is me really just trying to push the envelope. And I tell anybody who's going digital is that you really, when you're inking, don't worry about trying to buy 1,000 brushes. Just get one brush and do a bunch of different work with that one brush and see what you can achieve with it. Because I can get all these type of lines with it. I was getting all these pointy little lines. I was getting flat lines with it. I mean, all with the same brush. The same brush to my hand without switching. I can do these like diamond shaped things. Gradually get them that way, or point at the end points. Like this, or flat lines, or really
Yeah,
thin
dude, that's
lines.
crazy. I love those textures on that.
So you wanna play, with what does the pin do if I apply this pressure, if I tilt it this way, then go in your settings and play with your settings and see what everything that you can achieve with it, and that way you really learn to master that one tool, and you could zip through so much work with just one tool with a wide variety of lines and not constantly switching brushes and so I think when you're shopping for brushes, don't necessarily shop for I want 1,000 brushes for $1. You may not, you might, I mean, you're going to get what you're paying for sometimes. But also not to knock other brushes. I'm not the only brush creator out there. There are guys out there creating fantastic brushes. I haven't found you guys yet, but I'm sure you're out there. No, I'm just kidding. There, there's tons of great brushes out there. So I mean, yeah, get whatever you need, but definitely try to focus on one tool at a time and give it a good amount of time so that you can really learn and understand what that tool can do, and then try to get creative and try to use that same tool on different areas where you thought you didn't thought before. Just that's really like I'll switch to like a white, and I'll start doing stuff like that in white, like where I can start cutting through. Like in this area I can go, oh, Batman's cape, I could get let's say that cape came out into the black, I could do these really cool little effects with it. If I wanted to do these highlights in it. Of
Yeah,
course I would.
choosing the tools, like, I don't know. I didn't grow up with like a very rich family or anything, so everything I had was like gonna last a while, no matter what. So I think of everything like that. Like, I'm gonna get this tool because it's the only one I'm gonna have for the next like year or
Yeah,
something, you know?
yeah, get creative with it because that's the way we worked. Traditionally was we would go, okay. Oh, there's an artist sponge. I would see painters dabbing with an artist sponge, and I go, I wonder how that would work with ink. And I used to buy these artist sponge and dab them in ink, and I could get that effect that you see like Jim Lee do with tissue paper. I could get
Uh,
all kinds of effects with it. I would use old credit cards to flick the tip of my crow quill. I'd
uh,
use a spoon, an eyedropper, and I know it sounds like narcotics, but no, it was a spoon, an eyedropper, and an old brush, and I'd water down the ink, and I could flick it to get this really cool spatter effect. And we'd get creative, man. I mean, in the studio, and we were always trying to show each other, like, oh, look at this, man, look what you could do with this and that. And honestly, right now, I'm looking at my microphone, that little microphone spongy thing that goes over the microphone.
yeah.
I bet I could dip that in ink and get little
Oh,
textures
I
out of it.
bet.
This little, these little, I don't know what
So
these
you're
things
always
are.
just trying to like come up with different ways to get different results. Yeah, that's really cool because then it
Yeah.
becomes a style and a flavor that's like fresh, you know?
Yeah. And I just carried that over that type of mindset when I was digital. I came over digitally and I said, okay, uh, like I could use this brush right here where this brush could give me a really a fine little line, or if I increase the size, it's a little more shaky. And if I go bigger and I just blob it, like I can get these blob effects. It's the same brush. I'm just changing the pixel size, And if I reduce it down really small, the pixel size, I can get these fine little bitty like little lines in there. And so it's just play with. Oh, I wasn't zoomed in. Maybe if I zoom in, you guys could see what I was doing. But
Oh, well.
and it's just have fun, play with the tools, and see what you can get out of them, and then you spend a day just doing that, and then later on when you do an art, you'll remember, oh my god, if I want to fade out a really cool thumbprint, if this black right here just I moved the line art. If the black right here, if I want to fade out of it, I could just increase the pixel size and do like little like thumbprints out of it, and you just and you always remember what tool, what setting, and it'll come to you. Later you'll go, oh yeah, I could do this cool little effect with it. So that's what I always say, man. Just really get to know your digital tools as well. But my beautiful wife reminded me that I'm on a schedule. I have to go for walks because being a heart failure patient.
Oh, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but you see, look at that. I can put this texture across use it across the horn right here, and then
That's
if I
cool.
want, yeah, and then if I want, I can go back. That was a different brush, but I can go back to the crow quill and kind of do a little pattern out of it. You
Oh,
could do all
man,
these
that's cool.
and just thinking outside the, or just playing with the tools. I know when you're growing up, your mother told you don't play with your tools, but you're not gonna go blind playing with these tools. Um, all right, I won't make those jokes on here. It's not my
I love
channel.
it. I love it. No, I love it.
but
Well, Jimmy,
but
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, take care of, I mean, jump on your walk. I mean, we're at 2.5 hours. I think this is pretty good for all of us, just for tonight
Yeah,
too. Um,
I'm gonna
I mean,
I'm gonna
I
finish this up, but I'm pretty happy. I don't know if you want to pull mine up, Brandon, um,
yeah,
just to
yeah,
compare to
I
Jimmy's.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
man, that's so great, Jimmy. That's so sick. All right, let me see if I can pull yours up, Max. How do I do that? There we go. Wait. Actually, while mine's here, while it works real quick, this is where I'm at a little bit. You can kind of see what I was working with.
Yeah.
I like the textures you got on the wings and the forearm.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll
You,
send you guys a picture of it, like a PNG. I'll post it up on Instagram, or next time we do a digital one, I'll figure out how to
you got
get it.
more done than I did.
It was I really zoned into it. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to finish this, dude. This is got me addicted. I might stay up a bit longer and work on this too. But yeah, this was fun. Let me switch over to Max. Let me see how I could do that. Let's switch this one right here.
Oh
There we
yeah!
go. Oh
Wow! Look at
man,
this.
Max, dude, that's sick.
Damn.
Yeah, I started playing with the background, just trying to figure out the blacks and stuff.
You know,
That's cool.
one thing I love that you did, that you just took it interpretation. I didn't even pencil that in like that, but you did a very Manola or a very Bernie Wrightson, where
Mm,
the figure is rendered, and then you put shadow in the background, and the smoke was more
yeah,
white, so
right.
it separated the
Mhm.
two elements,
Really
together,
well.
and it made the figure pop.
Thank
And
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is awesome. Because then what
that's
I would
sick.
do is like I would just go in and just use lines to indicate the shape of the smoke, but not put any heavy blacks in it. And I like the way
Uh-huh.
you did it. I didn't even it didn't even dawn on me when I was penciling it to do that. But
Yeah.
your creative eye, I love it. I'm going to steal that when I
Oh, good.
when I start doing more stuff like this now. I love it. I like the way you did it.
Working in horror, it's like, oh, you want the page 80% black, or you're not doing it right. 80%
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the trick. What Mike Mignola does, he knows where to spot black, and because solid black can either push or pull anything, an element,
Yeah.
on the page. And I love the way you did it, and it made the figure pop forward. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a ton of fun with this piece. I'll end
Yeah.
up finishing it up and posting it, because it's coming out cool. So
Yeah. And Jimmy, we got to get you back on, as frequent as possible. This was a blast. I learned a
yeah,
lot. I mean, great
thanks.
discussions. I'm so glad, other inkers got to come in and ask, like Jeff and everything. So we'll find some fun projects to do and carry this on in the
Yeah,
future.
I'd be more than happy to. Just let me know whenever, and let me know when. And then as well, I gotta have you guys on my channel. I
Yeah,
do a lot of art streams like this too
would love
on my
to.
channel. So
Absolutely.
you
absolutely,
guys
dude.
can we can all
Yeah.
come hang out together. And like this today, I gotta be honest. Like just watching you guys work, I just go, oh my god, you guys did stuff that I didn't even think of. And I was like, oh my, I love what you did in the wing,
Hmm.
and I like that black that Max did,
Yeah.
pushing the figure forward. I go, oh my god, like I learned something from just hanging out with other artists.
Yeah, that's the
So
cool part, you know what I mean? And that's the whole
yeah,
point of this episode, to see how all of us interpret it differently and how all of our takes, we could all pick a little thing from each other. I'm totally gonna copy what Max did too. That's sick as hell.
yeah,
Super awesome. So that's the fun, interesting thing, how do we grow and expand ourselves? And dude,
yeah.
this was so much fun. But man, well, take care of yourself. We'll post up our stuff. Send us your finished one too. We would love to see it and post it up on our
Oh yeah, actually,
social
this
media.
was I just took this out from the
Oh, that's right.
page
Yeah.
in Dragon Rage. I just took it out from there. It's actually a panel, and the page itself. My book's done. I finished
Mhm.
Dragon Rage, and I'm going to pre-press.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'll be going to Comics Wellspring soon. You guys will be getting the file very very soon. But here's the actual page.
See if I can switch this over real quick. Da-da-da.
Yeah, so here's my page lettered right
Where did it
here.
go? See, use the StreamYard. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so here.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's sick. Love that
See,
top texture. Oof,
got
that's
I
cool.
just took the pencils that were underneath from here, and I just took it out. But this
Even
is
then, your updated one looks a little different as well. That's so super cool.
and so I the book's already done for Dragon Rage. It's a letter, but here's some like a preview of the book. Is still You can still back it right now on Indiegogo, but I'm about to close that campaign in about a week, and then The only thing is, this is going to be an artisan edition. So if for guys that are artists out there that like the line work, you'll be able to see my line work. It's getting printed. The art's printed in black and white, and that variant edition that I'm doing won't be offered again. It won't be on my website. It won't be sold on eBay or. It's only through that campaign. And then when it closes, that's the only time I get the artisan edition like this. And but you'll be able to see all the cool shadows and muscle tones and because like for me, looking at other artists out there, I learn and like like today, watching you guys, way you guys shaded some stuff, I go, oh man, I can incorporate it in my work. So I buy artist editions every chance I get.
Great study pieces, you just get lost in
Yeah.
them.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's so much you can learn, and honestly, I found this guy on Amazon. He did drawings very similar to the way I draw, but he made it a coloring book, and he offered a coloring book on Amazon, and it just recommended a coloring book. I looked at it, and went, "Oh my God, this art's amazing!" And I'm not
Sick.
gonna color it, so I bought one, and I'm not gonna color in it, but I got to show it off one day on the stream.
That's sick.
But I anytime I can get black and white art, so I buy it, and so I thought I'd do an artist edition. But yeah, so when my campaign closes in a week, that's it. Nobody, you won't be able to get that version of it again. But yeah, I'll be going over to Comics Wellspring, and I'll be calling you up, Brandon and Max. I'll be like, hey guys, now that we're buds, discount codes. Remember
Yeah,
me,
that's sick.
guys? We're best friends now. I need a
Well,
discount code.
my video on YouTube is really doing well. You guys should compensate. Like,
Yeah, yeah, right. I can really promote Comics Wellspring here. Yeah, no.
love it, dude. Yeah, dude, we'll work something out. That'd be great. I'll talk to my boss about it.
Yeah. Oh,
uh,
yeah, yeah. Tell them. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna get quite a bit printed up. Well, the book. If you guys later get a chance, go look at the campaign. You'll see that it's got quite a bit of backers on it for
I'll
being a
toss a
first
link
time.
here, or if you email me a link, I'll toss it right in the description so everyone who watches it
Oh,
right after
yeah,
this will be able to check it out as well. Yeah, send that over right
yeah.
after the show. Yeah,
Honestly, and if Jeff being up here, being my fellow inker, man, if he gets it, write me, buddy. Let me know. I'd love to hear what a
yeah.
fellow inker thinks of my work, and get to see because it's different when you see pixels on the screen. It's not
Hmm.
the same as seeing the printed
Yeah,
work.
For sure.
hands
100%.
down. Hands
Yeah,
down. It's a different feeling completely. We got to get you and Jeff. Maybe the next episode we bring you both on, and that way Jeff can be here. He's another fellow amazing inker. I think he'd have a great time with
I
us.
I would love that. I would love
Yeah.
that. And maybe if you like, I can even bring in maybe Art T Bear. He's been
Oh,
he inked X-Men
oh
and he's
yeah.
been an inker
That'd be
for 40
amazing.
years. He inked over Jim Lee and just he's done amazing stuff. He's the guy that I look up to.
Oh, nice. Dude,
So
I'd love to. Yeah, we'll set some
yeah,
stuff up. This would be great. I think everyone would be really excited. I think everyone watching right now, sticking around
yeah.
for the back talk. Nobody does that. So I think everyone would be hyped for things like that.
Yeah, it'd be
But
cool
yeah.
seeing getting a group of inkers together and
And we'll be doing, yeah, a little organized. We're gonna let you know. We'll get a whole party of people here and shuffle it up. And I think everyone will have a blast and just have a fun drawing night and then just enjoy it. So that'd be great. Well, awesome, man. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Max, as always, is always a blast, co-hosting with you and putting this art together. We'll all post our pictures up. And if you guys watching Drew as well, just tag us, post us, we'll share it. I'd love to see it. Jimmy would love to see it. We'll,
oh
we'll
yeah.
throw it up on all the socials. So that'd be really exciting for everyone. But other than that, as always, thanks for hanging, stay creative and stay inspired.